I'm Gen X, and my parents were boomers, and I don't know why I'm remembering this right now, but there was a conversation between me and my girlfriend at the time, who is now my wife, and her parents about my lunch break at work and how if I could get away with it working retail, I would skip lunch so that I could leave an hour early. Now, this is a pretty standard practice in retail. You're not really supposed to do it, but it happens. And Mary Kat's dad was shocked, and he goes, "You're a fool if you don't take your full lunch break." Now, again, I was kind of surprised because I'd been working retail for a couple of years, and this wasn't anything out of the ordinary, but he said that your lunch break is your time to yourself, to rest and reset, and that's why the company pays you for it. Paid me for what? Well, you get paid for your lunch break, don't you? No. You don't? No. So what? You're punching in and out like 4 times a day? I mean, yeah, unless I can skip lunch and get out of there an hour early. So this conversation happened like 20 years ago. This is what millennials and Gen Z are up against. People who have no idea how much getting a job and working at a job has changed in the last couple of decades. Anybody got a pension? Anybody? Anyone? Right now there's a couple people Googling what even is a pension. One more thing, you know how the older folks are always telling you that you need to just walk into the work site and ask for a manager and introduce yourself and explain what you can bring to the company? You have to apply online. This retailer that I worked at, which was a very large retailer, the hiring manager had one hard and fast rule. If someone comes in, whether they've already applied online or not, and they come in uninvited to see a manager, automatically they do not get the job. It is because they cannot follow directions and they think they know better. And the customer is always right. That's not a thing. That is an out of context misquote, and it has never been a thing. If you want somebody to suddenly stop helping you, say the customer is always right and watch their attitude change. Sleep sweet.
Partially in order to please the administration and their anti-drug messaging, MLB released an anti-drug film in 1972, highlighting the horrors of drug use. Keith Hernandez says he did so much cocaine one season, he doesn't remember the entire year. Lonnie Smith played with socks with pockets in them so he could have cocaine on him during the game. Tim Raines said he would slide head first because he played with a vial of coke in his back pocket. Snorted more than $40,000 worth of cocaine in a year. while leading the league with 78 steals that year. Lonnie Smith led the league in runs and was second in MVP while having coke in his socks. And the year Keith Hernandez doesn't remember, he was an all-star. Led the league in on-base percentage, won a Gold Glove, won a Silver Slugger, and smoked cigarettes in the dugout the entire time.
We've turned the corner on drug addiction in the United States. Drug addiction in the United States is under control.
Drug addiction in the United States was not under control.
Top story tonight, cocaine.
Cocaine is now becoming the in drug.
In 1972, 1.5% of the population was on cocaine. That number was nearly 5 times higher just 5 years later in 1977. The usage doubled in 1 year in 1983. Say hello to my little friend! And by 1985, ages 18 to 25, 28% of the population had used cocaine before.
All the people you ever heard of freebasing, have you ever heard of anybody blowing up? 10 million motherfuckers freebase, I gotta blow up.
One player estimated that 40% of the league was on the drug by the early 80s. Manager Whitey Herzog says he would make his team fly into certain road trips the day of the game instead of the night before, just so his players would play at least one game not hungover. Darryl Porter had the best season of his career, putting up an OPS plus of 142, led the league in runs, won a Gold Glove, got third in MVP voting, and one game climbed over the dugout and punched a fan in the face because he was taunting him from the stands.
Say no to drugs. Baseball cares.
According to
Texas police just spent $4.5 million on 4 Tahoes, but it's not just the trucks, it's what's inside them. These Tahoes are packed with something called FalcoNet from the Israeli company Cognite. FalcoNet is designed as a cell tower simulator capable of intercepting and collecting data from people's cell phones. The idea is that you can strap this technology to the Tahoes, and as they drive around, they can collect people's data. Now, I'm not a lawyer, but I have to only assume this infringes on the Fourth Amendment somehow. Only about $600,000 was spent on the actual trucks, the rest was spent on the technology, but still insane that a US police department is now using this.
Excuse me, hold on. So we like the face of this guy. We love this guy. We love the people. First of all, excuse me. I've actually been to Palo Alto. Palo Alto. Nobody loves. Excuse me. No, they say free Palo Alto, right? Who is Palo Alto? That name, excuse me, sounds foreign.
So what are you?
Swedish German.
Swedish German? Are you really?
Yeah, really. Why would I lie about that? It's not funny.
It's very odd, 'cause
It's a very strange lie. I put one over on those people. Yeah.
Swedish German. No, I tell you why it's funny, man, because I was in Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia.
Yeah.
I met a good old boy down there. He said, you know Andy Richter?
He did? You met a guy in Georgia and he said, you know Andy Richter?
Oh, yeah, you guys do well there.
Oh.
And he said, I said, yeah. He said, have you ever heard of Andy Richter joke? I said, no. He said, well, most of it's based on him being Swedish German. He told me an Andy Richter joke. And
Really?
But I didn't know he was Swedish German. I thought it was all nonsense.
Yeah, well, now this lines up perfectly. Let's hear the joke.
Well, the fellow says, man, he says, you ever heard a time about the old prospector? He says, man, there was no prospector, and he was prospecting for gold, and he was having a hell of a time getting any gold. It was an empty stake, I believe. He said he'd come into town one day. He'd been in the mine for a good 8 months. He said, by God, he said, I'm only flesh and blood. Sure. I need a woman. And so he goes into town. He goes up to the bartender. He says, bartender, he says, man, I've been in that mine for a hell of a long time, and I'm only flesh and blood. I need a woman. Well, the bartender says, hell, there ain't no women in this town. If you want to do any of that business, all we got is Andy Richter, the Swedish German. Prospector, he says, no, he says, hell, I ain't into that funny stuff, you know. He says, I'll be fine. So he goes back to his state, you know, and he's back in that mine, man, and 6 months passes, and a year passes, and Conan, you know, people are weak. Man is made of flesh and pride, as the scriptures tell us, and by God, that old prospector finally broke to his knees, and he said, I'm no worse than he went back to the bar. He was a beaten man. He says to the bartender, he says, hell, man, I've been in that place 2.5 years. A man has needs, and if you say there's no women in this here town, he says, well, I'll have to go for Andy Richter, the Swedish German. But he says, listen now, he says, man, I'm a tough old hombre, you know, and I got friends now. He says, I don't want anybody to know about this. You know, this is back in the old days.
Sure, yeah. I can tell by the accent, yeah.
He says, I got my cowpoke friends and so forth. I'd hate to hell anybody know about this. You know, this got to be all secret. Nobody. I say nobody can know about this. Bartender says, well, 4 people will know about it. How do you figure that? He said, well, he says, I'll know about it. He says, you'll know about it. And the Richter, the Swedish German, will know about it. And the feller that has to hold down Andy will know about it.
Why?
Why? Because Andy Richter, the Swedish German, he don't go for that funny business neither.
Well, at least you left me my dignity.
Yeah.
We need Kyle Schwarber to win the Derby. Please, Jordan Walker, just calm the fuck down. Jordan Walker, this is not your night. He does not need this. That's a line drive. Come on, fight! We need this so bad. This will save everything. No. That's why. I mean, this guy looks like he's making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, hitting doms. 1 swing left. If this guy hits 4 straight home runs to ruin everyone's night, I will never watch the Derby again. This will be the worst beat of all time, please. This guy's gonna turn into fucking Superman, that's one. No. Is it short? Of course it is. It's up ahead. Oh my gosh, this is such a bad beat. This is such a bad beat. I need to turn it off. We need to turn it off. We need to turn it off. This guy is going to do it. Someone fucking streak the field. Someone do something. This will be the worst beat of all time.
What the fuck is up, Subway?
Sino a tus compañeros que han venido
Ay, se pasó. Pau, no vale. ¿Qué pasó? Señores, gol. Se juega. Vamos.
Acá no se cobra eso.
La pelota no está en juego, así que no es full.
Yo hago el árbitro, yo soy el árbitro. Usted juegue tranquilo.
Ahí voy yo y le gano la...
Usted juegue tranquilo. Juegue, señor.
Welcome to the Independent Review, a weekly podcast where we bring you the latest from the world of independent journalism.
If you can't admire Joe Biden as a person, then it's probably you got a problem. You need to do some self-evaluation, because what's not to like?
You can thank Donald Trump and Elon Musk for that.
You know, I've been going all over South Carolina like most people. I hadn't slept much. But look what's going on in Israel. Our friends in Israel are surrounded by people that want to kill them, destroy them, a second Holocaust in the making. And Biden says, be proportional. What is the proportional response to people who want to kill you and your family? God. They're running out of ammunition in Israel. We have to help our friends to keep the war over there from coming here.
Say we're done. You packed up your stuff. It's really over. Said you've had enough. There's one thing I'd like to say before you leave. Hey. Fuck you, bitch. You broke my heart. Fuck your friends, tearing us apart. Fuck your dog, hope he never comes home. Fuck you, bitch, hope you wind up alone.
Welcome to the Independent Review, live on AM Wake Up on Odyssey, Rumble, Substack, and the Indie News Network on Twitter. Let's jump right into this first clip from Dave DeCamp of antiwarnews.com.
Hey, this is Dave DeCamp from antiwar.com, and welcome to Anti-War News. This episode is sponsored by Expat Money, and it is about 9:30 on Thursday night here in Virginia as I'm getting started here. And this is my last show, the end of my week. So the last show this week, unless something super crazy happens over the weekend. And I say super crazy because all of this stuff we're about to cover is crazy and just should not be happening. But anyway, so the first story at the top of antiwar.com today, the U.S. bombs Iran for the 6th consecutive night. So U.S. Central Command on Thursday announced that it was bombing Iran for the 6th consecutive night as the U.S. continues to escalate its attacks on the country. It put out a brief statement that said, quote, at 2 p.m. today, U.S. forces began conducting a new wave of strikes against Iran for the 6th consecutive night to further degrade Iranian military capabilities, end quote. And Iranian media reported several attacks on bridges and other infrastructure in Iran, suggesting that President Trump is making good, or starting to, on his threat to destroy Iran's bridges and power plants and other infrastructure. According to Dropsite News, at least 3 bridges were targeted by U.S. strikes, and Iran's Mer news agency reported that at least 3 people were killed and 9 were wounded by a strike on one of the bridges in Bandar Kamir, a port city in the Hormuzgan province. And I saw a U.S. official also told the Wall Street Journal that, yes, the U.S. is bombing bridges in Iran, claiming that they're used by the military. So this is a big escalation. And these are attacks on civilian infrastructure, targeting bridges and railway bridges. There's also reported strikes on a railway station in Bandar Abbas, and there was an attack on an airport in Iran Shah, which is a city in Iran's southeast, deeper inside Iran than the port cities. So pretty expansive strikes that the U.S. is conducting. And CENTCOM also announced that U.S. Marines conducted what it called a verification boarding of a tanker in the Gulf of Oman, as it is once again enforcing the blockade of Iranian ports. And earlier on Thursday, so before the U.S. started this round of strikes, Iran said that it was going to start hitting infrastructure across the region if the U.S. Follows through on President Trump's threats. This is what the spokesman for the Qatam al-Anbiya Central Command said, that if Trump's threats were carried out, quote, then everything that, owing to Iran's restraint, still remains, meaning all infrastructure in the region, will be crushed under the steel blows of the powerful armed forces of the Islamic Republic of Iran, such that no trace of it shall remain as if it never existed, end quote. And Iran's IRGC also announced that it launched attacks on U.S. bases in the region on Thursday. I believe there was attacks in Bahrain, Kuwait, maybe Qatar, but the IRGC claimed that they hit a gathering of U.S. troops in Kuwait. So far, I haven't seen the U.S. military deny that claim or confirm that there were any casualties. So we'll see with that. But it's a big escalation here in the U.S. strikes against Iran. And I think that's just the trend that we're going to see over these next few days and over this next week. I'll go through the Al Jazeera live updates just to see if there's any update on that story. Qatar's Ministry of Defense says that it intercepted a missile attack, so Iran's already responding to this latest U.S. wave. Trump claims that the U.S. is winning big in Iran, and he's addressing the nation. I think he's still talking. I didn't watch his whole address. It was about election stuff. He's making some claims about election interference. It was really boring. I almost fell asleep at my desk while I was watching it. But it's interesting that, he's making all the election stuff, making all these claims about elections and stuff and interference. And the point that I saw Thomas Massey make was, why is this, the SAVE Act is some election bill? Why is this a priority when the Republicans, just won all the elections? When Trump won, the Republicans did very well. And they might be setting up to be able to, when they lose big in the midterms, they might start making some claims about election interference. So let's see what else we have here on the live updates. So we have attacks on Qatar, and the death toll on the attack on that bridge has risen to 7. So that's a major attack. And I saw some reports that at least one car was on the bridge and, fell as it was bombed. I mean, imagine something like that happening. It's just, we're very sheltered from the effects of this war here in the U.S. So the attacks continue. Air raid sirens in Bahrain. So the U.S.-Iran war is raging as I'm speaking to you right now. So the next one here, Iran says U.S. attack forced evacuation of children's cancer hospital. So Iran's foreign ministry said on Thursday that a barbaric U.S. attack near a cancer hospital in the southwestern Iranian city of Avaz forced the evacuation of the medical facility. And this is the Iranian foreign ministry spokesman. He said, quote, Shahid Bakai Hospital, a children's cancer treatment center in Avaz, was evacuated last night after the U.S. attacked a nearby location. This barbaric attack, reminiscent of Israel's atrocities against healthcare facilities, caused severe suffering and anxiety upon the hospitalized children and forced the emergency evacuation of 211 patients undergoing chemotherapy, end quote. And this is a picture from inside the hospital. And he said that the attack was a war crime. And Iran's foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi, also released a statement on Thursday accusing the U.S. of committing war crimes against Iran. We know at least over 30 civilians have been killed, according to the Iranian government, the number put out by an Iranian government spokeswoman. from my experience covering this war, covering the 12-day war, the Iranian government doesn't inflate. Again, just from my experience, from what I've seen, I haven't seen them inflate civilian casualties. If anything, they actually downplay them. They're saying over 30 civilians have been killed. And with the 7 killed in the bombing on the bridge, I assume they're civilians, and that means that death toll is higher now. And Aragshi also urged regional countries to prevent the U.S. to launch these attacks from their territory. And so U.S. strikes against Iran continued, as we just covered that. But also there was also I think these were the overnight attacks Wednesday into Thursday. The U.S. bombed areas near Tehran for the first time since the MOU collapsed. So we're just seeing an escalation and an expansion of this U.S. bombing campaign, and still Israel's hasn't gotten in on it yet. I read a report in Haaretz today saying how much Israel's really benefiting from not being directly involved. They're still getting their war, but they don't have to worry about going to missile shelters and things and disrupting the daily life in Israel. So we'll see how long that lasts. The next one here, the U.S. okays a $2 billion arms sale for Saudi Arabia. So the State Department announced on Wednesday that it approved a potential $1.96 billion weapons sale for Saudi Arabia just days after Riyadh bombed the Sana'a International Airport in Yemen, shattering a fragile truce with Ansar Allah, also known as the Houthis, that has held relatively well since 2022. The arms sale includes up to 20,000 advanced precision kill weapon systems, kits that turn unguided rockets into precision-guided munitions, and it also includes warheads for those kits. And the deal includes 10,000 air-to-air precision kill weapon systems and 10,000 that are air-to-ground. And they're saying, these are a cheap way to take down drones and things and also launch airstrikes. $2 billion isn't cheap, but I guess they're getting 20,000 of them. So, and the name, at least it doesn't disguise that this is a weapon of war, precision kill systems. So the principal contractor for the massive deal is the U.S. subsidiary of BAE Systems, the British multinational weapons company. The State Department said, and this is a really important detail of these weapon sales, the State Department said that the potential sale requires the assignment of 15 additional U.S. contractors and 15 U.S. government representatives to Saudi Arabia, saying they have to go to Saudi Arabia for an extended period to support program and technical reviews, plus training and maintenance support in country. And this gets lost in a lot of this when we talk about the U.S. selling weapons to other countries. People think of it as just kind of giving them bombs to use. But in the case of Saudi Arabia, and also, of course, Israel, there's a lot of maintenance, especially with the jets, with the fighter jets. And Saudi Arabia has a whole bunch of U.S.-made jets, like Israel does. It's not just a matter of selling them the weapons. It's not like they're like, okay, that's it, enjoy your precision kill weapon system. The U.S. is deeply involved in helping them use those weapons, maintain the aircraft that will be firing them. So this was the U.S. was deeply involved in the Saudi war on Yemen, the brutal war, killed lots of children, and with this thing reigniting, it's going to be deeply involved yet again. So anyway, it's just a strong show of support for the Saudis, for the Trump administration to announce this arms sale, and of course, this comes also with the backdrop of the war with Iran raging. The U.S. wants to arm up its Gulf allies. They also approved a $484 million deal for Kuwait that will provide for sustainment of its C-17 fleet. And again, what does that mean? What does sustainment mean? It means contractors going over there to maintain these planes that require a whole bunch of maintenance. So this is what it entails when the U.S. sells countries weapons.
Flock cameras capture a complete vehicle fingerprint and use neural networks to identify and track people. Flock's system can generate heat maps, charting a vehicle's movements for 30 days, which can be used to reconstruct a person's movements, associations, and habits. Flock's nationwide data sharing allows police in one state to track vehicles in another without probable cause. Flock cameras have been under much public scrutiny lately, and many have been destroyed. But Flock isn't the only private company helping to build a mass surveillance state. A company called Axon launched a clip-on streetlight camera called the Axon Light Post in 2025. The device is powered by the streetlight's socket and is designed to be installed on existing streetlights in under an hour. Axon terminated its partnership with Flock Safety in January 2023, which was seen as a strategic move to compete with Flock. But Axon is also less noticeable than Flock and much more difficult to destroy. The Fourth Amendment requires a detailed warrant with probable cause, but these new surveillance programs are collecting data on everyone without any suspicion and are in direct violation of the Fourth Amendment. Privacy is foundational to liberty. It is an area within which the individual is free from interference and able to do and think whatever he chooses. Without private space, individuals cannot develop their own thoughts or make independent decisions. Privacy ensures the government must rely on the consent of the governed, rather than predictive surveillance. Privacy shields individuals from arbitrary interference by the state, and the loss of privacy creates a relationship of domination. Privacy allows for the mistakes, embarrassments, and false starts that are part of human life without permanent public record. Modern surveillance systems that make every aspect of public life permanent, searchable, and trackable are fundamentally incompatible with the freedoms outlined in the U.S. Constitution. The transition from Flock to Axon is already happening rapidly on a local level. The Axon Light Post is designed to plug directly into the existing sockets of standard streetlights within minutes. Most U.S. police forces already use Axon body cameras, Axon Fleet dash cams, and Axon tasers. Axon is now adding the Light Post surveillance tech into their existing software, Axon Fusus, which is already used by most police departments. Axon Enterprise recently acquired Carbine, an Israeli-founded emergency call management and 911 AI mapping platform. Carbine's platform is being merged with Axon's ecosystem to power Axon 911, which is already deployed in 49 U.S. states. Axon 911 feeds directly into Axon Evidence, which is already used by over 500,000 law enforcement officers across the United States. While Carbine is now owned by Axon Enterprise, Axon has maintained Carbine's development center in Tel Aviv, where roughly 80 Israeli engineers continue to code and build the software's infrastructure. Section 219 in the 2027 National Defense Authorization Act establishes the United States-Israel Defense Technology Cooperation Initiative, which will deeply integrate Israeli technologies, including AI, cyber, and autonomous systems, into U.S. defense procurement. Because Axon is an American company operating an R&D lab in Tel Aviv, the passing of this bill would make it easier for Axon to pursue federal U.S. military contracts using technology built by its Israeli engineers. By permanently embedding Israeli-designed software, quantum computing frameworks, and AI systems into the bedrock of the U.S. military, the U.S. becomes structurally dependent on a foreign power for its own defense. The United States-Israel Defense Technology Cooperation Initiative in the 2027 NDAA is designed to lock in these technological partnerships. If a future U.S. president or Congress wanted to halt military aid to Israel due to human rights abuses or policy disagreements, doing so would become incredibly difficult because the U.S. military's own systems would be codependent on Israeli code and components. Greg Reese reporting. The Reese Report is now fully funded by my Substack subscribers. Subscribe today and support my work at gregreese.substack.com.
For nearly 3 years, you have been given a highly sanitized, strictly police narrative about what occurred in Israel on October 7th. We've been told a very specific story, right? Anyone who stepped outside of that story, anyone who asked logical questions about how one of the most advanced militaries on earth stood down for 7 hours while its own citizens were attacked and killed was immediately branded, you know the words, conspiracy theorist, anti-Semitic. But what happens when the official narrative begins to splinter under the weight of actual evidence? See, tonight, new documentary footage has emerged out of Israel. This isn't speculation from the dark corners of the internet. This is raw footage of a high-ranking Israeli official caught on camera in the chaos of October 7th, speaking in Hebrew, explicitly coordinating what can only be described as something called the Hannibal Directive. Watch this.
הייתי עכשיו מפציץ את כל קו הרצועה עם ארטילריה, דופק להם מכה על מנת שיהיה להם בעיה. ממש להם על זה. כתבתי את זה לאבי. הם לא מעלים מזכרים, את רוצה שנלעד? לא, על עזה. שורק את הכל. עם החיילים שחטפו להם.
אלו הרגעים הראשונים בחמ"ל המשטרה.
איפה? באיזה יישוב?
עוד לפני שהשר הממונה יגיע. בטרם יוחלט מה לשידור ומה לצנזור.
רגע, אתה מצלם שנייה? אני נותן לך אישור, אתה צלם את זה. תוציא את זה בבקשה.
Okay, if you read that bottom line there, he said, please take this out. Think about that for a moment. Why would a government minister in the middle of a national crisis panic over a camera capturing tactical discussions only to be viewed later? What were they trying to hide? Well, I'm glad you asked. They wanted to hide that the command was just uttering on tape, quote, break it all apart, along with the soldiers who were abducted. What does that mean? That is something called the Hannibal Directive. 2 years ago, I was one of the very first reporters in the U.S. to actually report on this whole situation and exposed at the time the fact that Israel had clearly used the Hannibal Directive. Here is some of that report. When the IDF began to finally use their firepower and military to engage Hamas in southern Israel, did they exclusively target enemy militants? Well, evidence actually points to no. To understand what the Israeli military did to their own civilians on October 7th, you have to understand the political aspirations of Hamas and what the goal of taking hostages is. Political leverage. There are over 10,000 Palestinians in Israeli jails, 3,000 of whom have not been to trial or charged with a crime. When militant groups manage to capture Israeli civilians or soldiers, it gives them leverage to force a prisoner swap and to get some of their people out of Israeli prison. For example, in 1986, Hamas managed to kidnap 3 Israeli soldiers and bring them into Gaza. They demanded 1,150 Palestinian prisoners in return for those 3 soldiers. Well, after this, the military drafted a secret field order to prevent future kidnappings. It was called the Hannibal Directive. The directive gets its name from the Carthaginian general who chose to poison himself rather than allow himself to be captured alive by the Romans. Back in 2003, again, strangely enough, October 7th, 2003, 3 Israeli soldiers were taken hostage and brought into Lebanon. Following the activation of the Hannibal Directive, IDF attack helicopters fired indiscriminately on 26 vehicles, thus ensuring the death of their own soldiers and therefore robbing Lebanese militants of the ability to demand Israel make concessions. Again, that report was from 2 years ago. So now you know, the Hannibal Directive dictates that if an Israeli soldier or citizen is on the verge of being captured or taken hostage, or if they are captured by enemy forces, the military's priority is to neutralize the kidnapping at all costs, even if it means killing any and all Israeli hostages alongside their captors. It's meant to prevent enemy factions from gaining leverage in future prisoner exchange negotiations. On October 7th, we not only saw the Hannibal Directive in action, we saw something that a former Israeli official called at the time a mass Hannibal event. Now, the Israeli government claims that they officially canceled this directive in 2016 because they deemed it was too brutal, too unethical. But all the evidence pointing to October 7th tells a completely different story. Look at the evidence. For months, mainstream media broadcasted horrifying images of this highway you're looking at right now, leading away from the Nova Music Festival, where the attacks first started. We saw rows upon rows upon rows of cars, not just burned, but completely incinerated. In fact, many of those cars were melted. The media line was instantaneous. Hamas did this. Hamas torched these cars. This was a major part of the claim as to why extreme brutality was justified in Gaza. But let's apply some basic logic here, shall we? The Hamas fighters who crossed the border came on motorcycles and pickup trucks carrying AK-47s and light rocket-propelled grenades. An AK-47 fires small lead bullets. It cannot vaporize a row of sedans. It cannot melt engine blocks. It does not possess the capability to turn an entire highway into a graveyard of melted steel. You know what can do that, though? Hellfire missiles, autocannons, the type of heavy weapons deployed by Israeli Apache helicopters. Again, I explained this in great detail 2 years ago, and the response was, that can't be true. Israel would not do this to its own people. And yet this new documentary footage confirms that the orders were caught on video, and it matched exactly what we saw on the ground. The military was explicitly told to break it all apart along with the soldiers who were abducted. Let's also not forget the instances inside the multiple kibbutz communities where Israeli tanks shelled civilian homes full of hostages, killing Israelis inside to eliminate the Hamas fighters who were holding them. And again, why did it take the Israeli military 7 hours to launch a coordinated defense, but Apache helicopters were instantly greenlit to shell fleeing vehicles headed towards Gaza? For months, only a select few truth seekers were willing to ask these questions. People who refused to accept the corporate media script. People like Charlie Kirk.
But I think some questions need to be asked. Was there a stand down order? Was there a stand down order? 6 hours? I don't believe it. Israel's the size of New Jersey. When I took a helicopter ride from Jerusalem to the Gaza border, it's 45 minutes. Wow. 6 hours. Did somebody in the government say stand down? That is a legitimate, non-conspiracy question. The whole country is...
It is a non-conspiracy question. It's a straightforward question. Was there a stand down order? It's a question any competent journalist should have asked. We asked it. But Charlie faced immense, vicious pushback from the establishment for daring to voice it. In fact, if you go online right now, there's an entire undercurrent of speculation suggesting that Charlie Kirk's assassination wasn't just a random act of political violence and it had nothing to do with transgenderism. Some are openly questioning if he was targeted for asking those very questions. Now, obviously, there's no evidence he was killed over those questions, at least not yet. But what is confirmed, what is documented beyond a shadow of a doubt, is that multiple pieces of evidence are coming directly from the mouths of Israeli officials themselves. Listen to former Defense Minister Yoav Gallant when he was cornered on this exact topic just over a year ago.
ישירות, אני חושב שבאופן טקטי במקומות שונים ניתנה, במקומות אחרים לא ניתנה, וזו בעיה.
Yeah, in some places it was, he said. He admits it. He admits the use of the Hannibal Directive on October 7th. Yet, when independent journalists pointed towards those words a year ago, they were ignored and discredited. Today, the Israeli government still officially denies it. They claim they do not recognize that directive. But the footage doesn't lie, and the images don't lie. The question is no longer whether or not the Hannibal Directive was deployed on October 7th. The evidence proves it was. The real question now is, what will the world do with this truth? Because think about it. Every single piece of explosive evidence we just showed you, every bit of it, the documentary footage, the insider testimonies, the internal reports, the politicians, it is all in Hebrew. Virtually none of it's being broadcast in English, the language we're speaking right now. And that is entirely by design. See, none of these secrets were meant for American eyes or for American ears. So how did we find out about it? Because on this show, we never stop asking the questions that most mainstream journalists avoid. We refuse to consume that spoon-fed information handed to us, and when the situation demands it, we get our hands dirty. We'll go directly to the source and we translate what is actually being said on the ground. Because when you do, you discover the staggering scope of what we have been systematically blindfolded from. The missing signs, the catastrophic, inexplicable failures, and all the lies that have been told to you and to me for 3 long years.
There was a big buildup to this here, for those of you who are in the United States, you saw that it was like the 250th anniversary of the country. And I just kept thinking about it like it was a going out of business sale. You know what I mean? Like where you have the clearance banners hanging shittily from the building, and it just kind of everything looks like it's in disarray, and it just kind of screams like, oh yeah, they're clearly going out of business over there. Let's go over there and see if we can pick through their, let's see if they've got anything good. And for whatever reason, I don't know anything about the furniture industry, but 4th of July sales tend to be like a big deal in the furniture world. So it felt to me like it was like the 250-year USA furniture sale blowout. Everything must go. We're making deals on couches. We're throwing in love seats. It's like everything, very cartoonish, very. It started kind of with Trump announcing that he was going to have all these, like a big concert, and then everybody dropped out of the concert because it was crazy that they were going to be in it anyway. And then he insulted them for dropping out of the concert and called them all has-beens and shit all over them, which is funny but expected. Then said he would actually replace them because he's the great talker and that's what everybody wants to come and see anyway. And he's unfortunately not wrong in that arrogant remark, but it just kind of set this. It probably even started before that, or maybe about the same time when the UFC was having the event on the White House lawn. It is idiocracy come to life. It is so on the nose that it parodies itself. You can't even make fun of it. It's so obvious, and it's Camachoism. You know what I mean? He just expected President Mountain Dew Camacho out there with a machine gun. And frankly, I think a lot of people are kind of ready for that. It's been a good run. And 250 years is it's short, but spectacular. Did a lot of damage. But I think it's time to consider putting the for sale sign or the going out of business sign, or the everything must go sign in the window and just liquidating. I stayed in a hotel last month that was in Croatia, that was in this fort on the island of Split. And that fort had been there 3 times longer than the United States. And it's just a perspective checker, where you go, oh yeah, this whole United States experiment thing is relatively new. It's hard to think about that, but because I don't think we're wired to really understand, have that scale and perspective to know what that means. But we are a relatively new country, and it's been hijacked and gutted, and if only, if only it were what the sales pitch was for it. And it's been kind of an interesting time because at the same time that it's becoming obvious, 4th of July, the experiment is ending, the wheels are coming off of the American clown car. We also simultaneously have the World Cup going on, and we're getting people that are coming from Scotland and Norway and Japan, and they're coming from all over the place, and they're experiencing American culture, and they're blown away with it. Like they're in, they're having like the Japanese guys going to Texas barbecues, fantastic, they just, it was blowing their minds, or the Scots drinking all the beer in Boston, which is fucking great, man. I mean, so and singing and doing all that. That's you get a glimpse. It's It's simultaneously optimistic, and demoralizing, right? Because you get a glimpse of what it could be. You're like, are you against immigration? It's like, shit, I'm not against immigration if it's all these people that are coming that actually want to be here and speak the language and are ideologically aligned. And I don't just mean white, but I mean, they're coming from a high trust society and entering America and in intending to maintain it or keep it at a level that they perceive to be a high trust society. Spoiler alert for this episode, it's not. We're going to talk about how the American empire is overextended. We are going to talk about some solutions. I mean, it's not like it's lost or anything, but I want to mention what I see going on out there. I want to mention New York. I mean, I'm sorry to pick on New York again, but some stats came out that are staggering. And of course, we have to talk about that because it's a microcosm of America. But it's nice to see some people want to come to the United States. And I'm not like a hand on my heart, weepy, saluting the flag on 4th of July type of person. But I do like living in the United States and wish that it was maintaining what it used to be. It's deteriorating and it's fixable, but it's got to get honest about some of the flaws. So I'm proud. I mean, I enjoy living in the United States. I'm certainly not proud of what the American empire has done, but there was a time when we all kind of got along and things were much better, and it's intentionally falling apart. And it's end of empire behavior, frankly, by the super wealthy and by the dirt poor. And the people in the middle, us, who are trying to make sense of this, we're like, they're stealing everything that isn't bolted down inside the Trump administration, right? And the Bidens too. I mean, but right now it's almost as if like they got the memo that the ship is sinking. I mean, because the Trump family is looting the crypto rug pulls, multiple crypto investment deals in shady energy company. I mean, like Burisma style energy company, investment in companies in Central Asia that then magically get financing from the American State Department and things. All that dirty dealing stuff. Like every president and their family on some level has been doing this. I think that's inherent across every government, right? But there used to be a little bit of decorum. You used to pretend like you weren't stealing everything. You used to at least make it look like, you'd set up a foundation and steal afterwards, like the Clinton Foundation did. Though they did steal the furniture out of the White House, which is hilarious, but actually perfectly on brand. So the United States is now, unfortunately, I hate to say this, but in the big city, and I'll leave it to the big cities and not paint the entire America this way. But in the big cities, the United States is now predominantly a low trust society. It just is. And you don't notice it if you live here. It's incremental. You're the fish swimming in the dirty fish tank, right? It was clean at one point, and it didn't get that dirty instantly, or you would have noticed. It just progressively got a little shittier, degraded every day, a photocopied version of a photocopied version of society, and that's kind of where we are. And then on my travels to Asia over the last couple of years, going to Tokyo, it just the contrast between an actual high trust society and how that functions, and walking by a big rack of bikes and saying to my friends, "Look, there's not a bike lock on any of them," just and you feel a tiny bit demoralized. Right? Like you almost want the dream to go on. Oh, America's the greatest country in the world. We fight for freedom and democracy. Like, yeah, man. Like, haven't you guys been singing that same old song for a long time? Like, I don't think people are buying it anymore. The economy is a scam, like in more ways than you can imagine. Hang on in here a couple minutes when we get to the New York City part. When I say the economy is a scam, it's not just like some throwaway line. I've got stats that'll back it up that'll just blow your mind. You just won't even believe it. And I think that nonprofits and NGOs are being used to destroy everything. They're the wrecking ball. And and this is how they do it. They do it under the guise of helping. They're charities. They're here to help, and they help by getting in there, creating bureaucracies and making sure that that sucks up all the resources, all the money, and that nothing ever gets done. Because the goal is to never get anything done. And to make sure that like good ideas die and that shitty ideas live and that anything that's here to help gets stuck in a committee endlessly forever. And that's what you get in these leftist shithole big cities like Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Portland, and Seattle, and Chicago, and New York, and Philadelphia, and Houston. I mean, it's undeniable. The wheels have come off. Washington, D.C., sorry. Miami to a certain extent. You look at it and you go, if you were trying to destroy a city, you couldn't have done it any better. I either am going to say you're the most incompetent people in the world or you're evil geniuses to be able to do what you've done to Seattle. We just did an episode about transgendered refugees in Seattle. I mean, holy shit. When I started this podcast, I certainly never thought I would have to do an episode about that. But here we are. It's just what it is. The U.S. national debt clock, I just checked it, $39.41 trillion in debt. And I've started thinking that clearly they're not paying it back. I don't think that's an option that anybody's even considering anymore. It makes me think that this might be me giving them too much credit, but allow me to pontificate here for a second. But what if they know something we don't know? Like, what if they know there's a gigantic pole shift or an asteroid coming? Then if somebody pulled you aside and said, there's an asteroid that's coming in 30 years that's going to wipe out everything. We're going to go back to the Stone Age. I would say, oh, well, now that makes sense. Now a lot of these decisions make sense. You haven't upgraded the infrastructure inside the United States? Yeah, okay, now I get it. Now I know why we don't have trains. China has high-speed rail trains, has had them for 20 years. They go everywhere. We have Amtrak subsidized by the government. I mean, I'm trying to give them an out. I'm trying to give them an opportunity to explain their incompetence by saying there's a pole shift coming. None of this is going to matter. People at the highest level know this. That's why nothing ever gets done. Then I would go, oh, okay, that's great. And maybe that is the case, but I don't know. Until I get some sort of evidence or until it happens, I'm going to go with fraud and incompetence as being probably the main driver of this. I mean, the fact that there is now zero financial oversight is crazy. With Catherine Austin Fitts on, we're talking about FASB 56. What they did is they made the accounting, like the blackout, or how they black out documents when you're doing like FOIA requests and things that you get a document, but it's 3/4 of it's blacked out. That's the American government's accounting system essentially is all blacked out. Right. So there's missing money. What they found, 21 trillion. They only examined 2 out of the 17 federal agencies. So extrapolate out however much, I don't know, 100 trillion plus missing. I don't know. You're guessing at this point, but more than 21 trillion. You know that. We've got an overextended military. Oh, I'm going to get into that a little bit later. We've got a power grid that is outdated. We've got roads and interstates and bridges that need help. You know, I mean, like, I'm at the point where it's like, I'm not asking for high-speed rail. I'm just asking for decent rail. Rail where the trains don't fall off the tracks or go across bridges that don't fall down. Or when your bridge in Baltimore gets hit, you rebuild it. I think if the Iranian military were in charge of rebuilding the bridge in Baltimore, it would have been built in a month. They seem to be pretty good at getting their missile silos all dug out and, right, apparently. Can we hire Iranian engineers to rebuild our bridges, please? Because apparently they rule at it. But do we even have any money to spend on building that bridge? By the way, the Baltimore Bridge, I think the initial projection, I'm not making the numbers up, but I'm estimating here. It was something like 1.4 billion was like the original one, and I think the latest number I saw was like 5 billion. It's like, you just laugh. You go, okay. I mean, just call it fraud. We understand. I mean, could you imagine running a business where you're like, boss, okay, I have the projections for what it's going to take to launch this new widget of ours, and you give it to your boss all the facts and figures they need, and then you come in 9 months later and say it's going to cost 3 times more than what you'd projected. You would be fired, right? Why do we allow this in government? Oh, we made a mistake. You know, that $1.5 billion bridge, it's actually going to be $5 billion. Our bad. No, not your bad. Build it for $1.5 billion. Like you said you could. Or were you lying about that? You know, we've got, I don't want to be negative and say that America's cooked, closing its doors and everything, but like, what would the signs look like if it were? Would it look like Americans not having $450 of savings for an emergency? Would it look like 70% of Americans not having that much money just squirreled away in case something goes wrong? You have to go to the dentist in an emergency, whatever. Like, homelessness is one mistake away, one accident away. It doesn't even have to be your fault. It'd be one thing if it's your fault and you just keep putting yourself in bad situations, and it'd be tough to have a lot of empathy. But in America right now, you can just be an unlucky guy walking across the street and your life has changed, right? One bad situation, you get hit by a migrant in a car who has no insurance. Prime example, happens every day. Happens 100 times a day, every day. Now what? It's your not your fault, but it's your problem. Right? So now we have problems that didn't exist years ago that are being created by people who weren't here years ago. So it's not an overstatement to say that things have degraded. It's not just that the people that have been brought in by the millions are incompatible. In some cases, some are, some aren't. But let's just say, generally speaking, we're intentionally brought in to be incompatible. Then it's not just that that's a problem. Those people then go on to create more problems and more people. They then self-replicate at a rate that's 3 times what the current U.S. rate is, depending on the country. But if you're coming from Central Africa, you're at least 3 times the rate, maybe even 4 or 5 times the rate, depending on which country you're coming from. So, like, you can just do the math, man. You know what compound interest looks like? Just look at compound interest of people. Right, because that's what you're getting. You can run the population maps to 2100 and see what America's demographics are going to look like.
these people.
I'm gonna start with the thumbnail. And normally I don't make my thumbnails in advance, but lately I've been doing that. It's been better on my mental health because after the stream is over, when I do the editing, like I cut everything up, and then at the end of it, I'm like, ugh, and now I got to make 5 thumbnails, one for every clip. This way I make them in advance, knowing what we're going to cover, and it's just easier on my brain. So now, what's happening here? Ratioed. And we're going to talk about how Whitney Webb, the great Whitney Webb Indie Media Award honoree, all right, published something about Polymarket, a new article. She made a tweet, and we heard from Nikita Beyer. You're going to hear all about who he is and the hilarity that ensued beyond. So let's get into it. Whitney writes on July 1st, this was literally the day after we did our last show, the morning after. I'm like, oh, shit. So this is already 6 days old. All right. We've recently been quiet because Mark Goodwin and I have been working to write the most comprehensive investigation into Polymarket's origins and ambitions to date. We found that Polymarket's official origin story, that Shane Copland founded the company alone in 2020 and then built the company in his bathroom, is a lie. Polymarket really started years earlier as another company called Token Bank that was deeply tied to Israeli interests, specifically a crypto company founded by Benjamin Netanyahu's niece and nephew. Seriously, Copland has actively tried to obfuscate this company from his story, and that's not the only thing either. In part 1 of this 2-part series, we will unravel the real history of Polymarket, directly connecting the company to Peter Thiel's efforts to resurrect controversial DARPA programs from its now defunct Information Awareness Office. And like 2 years ago, I covered an article from Whitney about total information awareness. That was the program that was a DARPA program that it's like Morgan Freeman and Batman, where they would be able to map out the entire city and see and hear everything, know where everybody is based on signals. Okay, so what she's saying here is that Polymarket appears to have been chosen by Thiel and his associates to succeed in resurrecting DARPA's policy analysis market, where another Thiel-linked company, Augur, had previously failed. So he's already been trying this. Stay tuned for part 2, where we explore the current influence of the prediction markets and Polymarket, including how an insidious effort to have prediction markets replace representative democracy as a governance model is already slowly being implemented by the White House. And yes, Whitney is a TLAV contributor, TLAV also being an Indie Media Award honoree. That's the LastAmericanVagabond.com. For all your LastAmericanVagabond.needs, as Steve likes to say. That's one of my favorite things he says. So there's a link to part 1, and I'm going to read part 1. I'm going to get into reading as much of part 1 as we can get to. What ends up happening after that is hilarity ensues. Now, she publishes this at, 8:30 in the morning, 11:30 in the morning on July 1st. Well, the next morning, after it has gotten a little bit of traction, this guy, I think we've talked about him once before, Nikita Beyer, he is the head of product for Twitter. And I looked a little bit further into him, and he's taken 2 other products to sale and sold them to large tech companies. He's a tech bro, Silicon Valley, who started working as head of product for Twitter July 1st in 2025. So he's been there literally a year. Thinking this way is a form of mental illness. Now, he's done mental gymnastics to cover for Israel multiple times. Everybody kind of knows this. All right. And right away, it's weird. First of all, why is the head of product of this platform commenting on an independent journalist's tweet about Polymarket and Peter Thiel? What's the link? There really doesn't appear to be any, but orders appear to have gone out to attack Whitney and to try to attack her reporting with ad hominem attacks. Notice he does not do anything to actually attack the substance of anything she's written. It's just a form of mental illness. And then that's his also code for anti-Semitism, of course. Everything is anti-Semitism because, of course, Netanyahu's niece and nephew were involved directly in. And Whitney will show you that link in her article. So my response to him, I saw this immediately. Now, when I found this, Nikita had about 400 likes and he had about 80 responses. And I'm like, oh, he's going to get ratioed something fierce. And I said, I see Steve's ratio wasn't enough for you this week. Should be interesting. Good luck. You're a clown. Now, what I was referring to here is that Steve Poikonen from Slow News Day and AM Wake Up, who we co-stream every weekday morning from 10 a.m. to about 1 p.m. Eastern. Steve had put up a thing earlier in the week about Flock. So Flock had posted a thing about catching kidnappers and doing mental gymnastics about Flock. And Steve ratios Flock. First of all, Flock's post initially has a couple of thousand likes, 100 likes. Steve's has 12,000. Then Nikita Bayer weighs in. This is a few days before. The whole meme about Flock being bad was likely started by foreign adversaries. It wasn't the first time narratives to destroy American municipal infrastructure were boosted. Crazy that something benign as license plate readers on public roads has turned into the boogeyman. And then he gets, of course, community noted on his own platform, which is hilarious. All right. And once again, Steve says, wow, guy, you suck at running cover for the surveillance state, and ratios him. And Steve then says on his show this week, I don't think I've ever ratioed anybody that badly in my life. And you look at, he had 1.4 million views on his post. All right. And 1,200 likes. Really, really bad. Nobody's liking what he's doing. And he's getting a ton of responses. He's getting ratioed this way as well. 1,400 responses, all telling him he sucks and that he's lying and he doesn't know what he's talking about. So that was 4 days prior to this whole situation with Whitney. So I saw in the morning, or at 5 o'clock, oh boy, this is not going to end well for you. You're a clown. And literally 4 hours later, he's getting ratioed. Now the comments are already outweighing the likes. And the likes aren't going up and the comments are going crazy. Now, I looked recently and I think there's 12 to 1,400 comments and still only 911 or 912 likes, something like that. I'll bring up the current tweet and we can see where it's at right now. Here, 910, 1,400. There you go. So people are really not liking what this guy's doing. People are wondering why he's doing what he's doing. Worse is that his own tweet gets community noted that says there is nothing false in what Whitney Webb wrote. Everything she said is true and has sources to back it up. That was Grok. So somebody said, Grok, is this true? So Bizarro Baby points out that he's now somehow figured out how to remove, because he's the head of product, he removed the community note that was put up correcting his nonsense about this being mental illness, because it's not. It's an incredibly sourced, well-detailed article with facts, receipts, times, and dates. It's an investigation. And you can draw from it whatever you like. All right. So that's one of the other things that happened there. All right. And then somebody else points out that here's another tweet where they were showing from Polymarket that there was an influencer campaign right now happening with Polymarket that people aren't disclosing. Look at the quotes of this post to see who's being paid. And all you had to do was look at literally the quote tweets on that post. That was part of the rules to get paid. Right? This is illegal and a community note is necessary due to their lack of disclosure. That also got removed because they're hiding the conflicts of interest on behalf of their own advertisers. Gross. Here's more receipts showing that in June 2025, Twitter named Polymarket as its official prediction market partner. The collaboration integrates Polymarket's probability data, with Twitter's social feed and Grok AI insights to provide users with data-driven, real-time annotations on current events. Except that's all that data can be manipulated. There's no regulation on it. I'll get to that in a minute. Advertising and affiliates. Polymarket has actively advertised on Twitter by establishing affiliations with third-party accounts such as news aggregators and influencers, individuals that have large followings that receive badges or paid partnership labels to share Polymarket odds. This strategy allows Polymarket to leverage these accounts for broad reach, though investigations have noted that some affiliated accounts have spread misinformation. Nah. No way, right? And then we get to my friend Sir Escanor, the Hopium Slayer. He is spicy. He can get people a little upset sometimes. I like his reporting. In this case, he had the receipts months and months prior to this on who was working with Polymarket. So what he pointed out here was that I told you months ago, nobody listened. Whitney Webb just confirmed what was already in the thread. Polymarket, the network behind it, the affiliates profiting from your outrage. He's got one part of it, all of it documented, all of it receipted, all of it ignored by the people who should have known better. That includes the names you still follow and defend. I don't follow and defend them because they're all blocked in my feed, like Nick Shirley and Ryan Matta. Okay, the thread stands. The receipts stand. Now, Ryan Matta's big on the anti-imperialist side, but he's not in it. He's more on the infiltration side, I feel like, from the other side. All right. The only thing that changes is that you can't pretend you didn't know anymore. Thank you for that, Whitney Webb. Team Truth has no room for people who knew and stayed quiet anyway. No heroes, no halos, and hopium. Amen. Because all of these people are flawed. They're mostly bought off. And so what we're going to go through here really quickly is this appendix. And he goes through this influencer mesh. But this is a long, long thread where he talks about inside the market that bets on you, not the world. There's a comforting little lie floating around the internet that prediction markets just predict the future. No, they don't predict the future. They literally engineer it. And they don't run on insider analysis. They run on you, your outrage, your impulses, your reactions, the dopamine jolts every time some influencer drops a breaking narrative grenade into your feed. By the way, if you ever see anybody that publishes stuff like this regularly, block them. It's a propaganda op. This is not a market, just a lab and drag. A behavioral casino you never agreed to enter, and the house always wins, as with every casino. All right, so here's the behavioral furnace. So this is a long thread, and I will again include this after the thing's over. After the show's over, you'll be able to see this in the Substack linked. But this dialogue, the whole thing came out about dialogue recently. January 6th, he was talking about dialogue and that influencers conference that that Thiel and his associates were holding to try to bring mainstream influencers into their mix and push narrative. This is what I wanted to get to, was this Polymarket influence mesh. All right. Here we go. Inside the market that bets on you, not the world, like I said. So here's the appendix. Here's all the people who are partners, affiliates, confirmed, are self-disclosed partner promotions affiliates, referrals, or are part of the badge incentive network. So if you are sharing any of these, you are now sharing people that partner with Polymarket that are trying to rig polling, that are trying to rig the outcome of specific events in order to make profit for themselves. Sometimes they don't even care which way it gets rigged, but sometimes they do. Take into account like the Massey thing with Ed Gallerin, where in the last couple of days. It was the poly market shift that people saw, that all of a sudden, all the big money that was going that way, people realized, oh shit, now Massey's in trouble. It was an indicator, but it was one where there was a bunch of money that was being all of a sudden bet on Garland. Unusual Whales is one a lot of people share. I've seen that shared a bunch. Around 1 million followers, official language partner. So all these people, Eric Pan, Moist, whatever Moist is, Chamath Palahiptia, I don't know what that versus 1.5 million followers. Okay. Pleb Reporter. Okay, I don't even know who any of these accounts are, but they're big. You see 50,000 plus, 200,000 plus. History and Memes, paid posts on markets. I said, there's Cat Turd, right? You see again, when you mouse over now he should be blocked. Nick Shirley. I'm surprised he didn't block me for my investigation. Benny Johnson, blocked. Timcast should be blocked. I don't know how Tim Pool is. Candace, I should be blocked. Again, notice I'm not following any of these accounts. None of them are in my follows. Matta should be blocked. No, he's also not blocked. That's weird. It should be showing more. Nate Silver. Also, so a lot of these people. Midas Touch, who was with the Diplo. I don't follow any of these people. Donald Trump Jr. That's not the junior account. And then, of course, the founder or CEO, Shane Copland, the kid, right? Ethereum since 14. So he's a crypto bro. And, of course, the Fed Slop Raws alerts. Awful. I don't follow any of these accounts. All these people are being paid to influence Twitter in a heavy way with large followings. Probably botted to a point. Morgan Ariel, I've heard of her. Okay. Christian cultural commentator. Lioness for Jesus. Okay. Sure. Jake Paul, people know who that guy is. Right? So all these people are being used to promote these influencer, these prediction markets. But like I said, they're not prediction markets. Here's other people. Sam Parker pushing this nonsense. All right. So shout out to Sir Escanor for exposing all this long before a lot of other people did. And also a reminder that we've been on this poly market stuff because back in March, we read a popular information article about how, they're betting on when we were going to invade Iran or bomb Iran, somebody from the inside. They were doing insider trading to rig these markets. And it turns out that Donald Trump Jr. is an advisor to both Polymarket and their competitor Kalshi. Don't know how that's possible, but somehow he's getting paid by both.
All right, so without further ado, we have our guests here tonight, the dynamic duo from Grimerica. We've got Graham, we've got Darren. They're both over there on the Twitter. You can check them out. You can also check them out at GrimericaOutlawed.ca. That .ca means they're not here in America, but they're in the same continent, and they share the ideas of freedom. And I want you to give them a warm welcome and round of applause out there in the chats. Graham and Darren, welcome to Grand Theft World. How you guys doing this evening?
Good. Thanks for having us. Happy to be here.
Yeah, we're doing great. 51 all the way.
What's up, guys?
I was going to say, you guys know Scott, right?
Yeah, what's up, fellas?
Yeah, it's good to see you guys.
Good to see you, Scott.
It was great listening to that little rant there because Darren and I both just started doing our own thing. Darren just left his job not too long ago, changing the mindset, doing our own thing, trying to add value to the world. So it was great to hear that little rant.
Well, what do you guys think about people being embarrassed about making their offers? Because there's a lot of chastisement. If you just watch chats and you take your opinion as an entrepreneur, you'll go out of business real fast because you'll be too scared to make your offer out there. I learned a long time ago when I was in college that you have to be willing to take no for an answer. In fact, if you make that your goal to go get 10 no's today on your offer, you're going to improve as a business person. And that gave me a future, whereas my college degree was never going to give me a future that I felt that I had a desired living status level, and my business degree from college was going to do this. But investing in a franchise, learning how to run a business, hire, fire, get leads, do sales, that gave me all the experience I needed to get off and running. So did you guys ever do anything other than for a paycheck? Have you run businesses in the past? Like, how did each of you get your start?
Yeah, I've been up through the corporate ladder. I've had my own little tiny business, and then Darren and I've been in business with Darren in the steel industry. And then I left a little bit before Darren just because I was able to. And then he left that industry. Darren's he's the doer, right? He's a real go-getter. I don't think he cares about the rejection part. He just goes after it. Like, I'm a little bit more of a sort of a planner, a little bit maybe analysis, maybe sometimes too much. Well, yeah, maybe
paralysis by analysis. I call procrastination.
Try not to get to that, but Darren just goes after it. Like he's kind of more of that go after it type thing. But I've had 10 more years of career experience. I had been in a business process re-engineering environment in an aircraft industry and ran like a business excellence team. So I've had that, Scott was talking about pitching and stuff. I've had to meet in front of boards, and I've had to sell our department, sell like business improvement. So I've been through all that. At least I've got that experience behind me, but now I'm kind of more of just adding value. We publish audiobooks, trying to just every day just work at it, add value so that we can build a business that's that we can have this freedom to do all these other businesses. I mean, Darren was just traveling around in the Azores, touring people around, looking for Atlantis, doing these awesome things, and he's able to do that because we're sort of been putting in the work to build up this sort of this income that happens no matter what we're doing,
Yes. And there's people who are out there like doing the motions, and they're like, why aren't I traveling to Azores too? Right. And the difference is knowing how to encapsulate your value in a way that the market is interested in and transacts with. And in the absence of that, people will make up all sorts of things, but it's like, oh no, that person just has some business savvy and they're applying it. As far as the publishing of the audiobooks, what do you guys do to market them to let people know about the ongoing creations?
Well, luckily we have the podcast, so that's how we take care of. We're able to take care of a lot of our marketing in house, and then I honestly looked at doing some advertising on some of the different platforms, but our major platforms right now, at least, are Spotify and Audible, which are doing a pretty good job of cramming our content down people's throats already. Like I can't advertise to our books to our customers as well as the Spotify and Audible algorithms seem to be able to. We all get that email in our inbox every week from Audible, and here's the stuff you might be interested in. So, but look, we do the podcast and we put them on YouTube and we put them out in podcast form, and we kind of
have a website.
We have a website. And
I have it. Let's see, it's on this tab right
adultbrain.ca. Yeah.
We probably don't market them honestly as well as we should. Like we probably don't market any of it as well as we should. From I don't think we've ever, other than like some Facebook ads, we've never fucking spent a dime on advertising, other than like we've built up all these connections and emails and everything else over the years. So it's like, we can, but I'm kind of shameless on just emailing people and being like, hey, we're selling this trip, or we're doing this, or we've been able to amass this because we were listening to No Agenda in the beginning, and they were in right away talking about the importance of, I don't know, it was sort of in passing, but they were talking about the importance of an email list. So we always were building this newsletter, which, took forever, and you're sending this newsletter out to like 45 people, and it seems like a waste of time. But then before you know it, there's thousands of people on there. So it's like now, then we have that avenue. We have a new book coming out. We have a new trip coming out. We have, we had this person on our podcast. So,
But
yeah,
it's a good question though, because we don't do ads and I don't like listening to ads. I don't like the traditional marketing sort of advertising avenue. So that does kind of leave me in a spot where I'm like, well, we probably should figure out how to do a better job of marketing it. But I also don't really want to, put ads out there. So
the latest thing I've been thinking about, honestly, especially for the trips, because it's a high ticket item compared to like an audiobook, which I don't really have any control over the mechanism for anyway, because the sales 95 or not more than that. I mean, 99% of the audiobook sales aren't going directly through us. They're going through one of the countless distributors, but the trips are directly through us. That's directly in-house, and it's a pretty high price ticket. We go, like, our latest trip is 13 days in Sicily, Sardinia, and Malta, looking at the Hypogeum and all that, basically all of
Looking
it.
for giants in their
Yeah, we're going to all the giants' tombs on Sardinia and all that sort of stuff. So it's going to be fun. And what I was thinking of lately, honestly, is because we don't want to do ads, and it's like Eventbrite, because we use them, unfortunately, but sometimes they'll let you do these ad things and you can spend this money. And I was like, man, if I was gonna pay a few $100 or $500 in advertisements, I'd rather give it to our buddies. So we were I haven't even talked to the guys about that, but it was like, I'd rather do maybe an affiliate thing if I was going to do any sort of marketing, where I talk to all my buddies that have podcasts, because we find ourselves in this sort of podcast sphere, and say, hey man, for every trip you can sell, I'll give you a couple $100, or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of entrepreneurs like. Our choice is, I can give money to Zuckerberg, or I can give money to Eric Schmidt and Google, or I can give money to my colleagues in the form of referral fees for it's marketing. They have
and it's a lot
access.
more valuable
What they
that
say
way.
in entrepreneurism is, like, especially in the internet world, like, if you come up with a new idea for a product or service, right? And the whole market is made up of solving problems. So if you have a method for that, now you can solve problems. And what do they want? They want results they want and don't have, and they want to get rid of problems they have and don't want. So now you're going to bring a product or service to the market because you saw something and you're like, I think this would work. If you don't go through the steps of actually overcoming the fears to get started with that idea, and like, this is where I want to go with it, Darren. If you're the go-getter, if you're the doer, when in your life did you overcome like the limitation? Because most people through public school, they've got this limitation of what will other people think. They might get the idea at home, but it's definitely formulated through the school system. And that prevents a lot of people from pursuing good ideas into the marketplace. But when Graham had noticed, like, you're the one who doesn't, like, you don't need to plan or strategize. You could have an idea and put it into action and kind of figure it out after the fact, right? So, like, was that always something in your upbringing? Were there adults that modeled that for you, or is that something that you got to be like in 6th grade and then you made this leap forward? How do you think you acquired that daringness?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. The business side of things, I think I kind of just had a natural affinity towards leadership in my career. So there was kind of a go-getter in that sort of way. Always sort of whatever, it was like whatever job I had, I knew I was gonna, I was always sort of cocky. Whenever I walk in there, I'd be like, oh man, I'm better than all of these guys. It's just a matter of time. And that, honestly, just half the time or more turned out to be right. And not because I was better than them, but honestly, just because I tried harder. I was just like, I remember being in meetings when I was still doing construction, when I first started, and I was first like starting to get leadership roles. And it's like my boss is showing me these blueprints in the morning, and I'm like, they're going over it. They're going over it quick, and I'm like, I know if I can look at this and if I have a minute, I can understand this. But they're going over it quick. They're like, you get it, you get it, you get it. And I'm just like, I just got in having, yeah, man, I got it. Because I knew I could just, like, when I got to the job site, I could sit down, take 20 minutes, look at the print, get through it. And by the time the guys had like all the tools unpacked, I would know what was going on. And before you knew it, you know, when they were going over that shit quick in the morning, I was keeping up and I knew exactly what was going on. And I don't know, I guess I just take a lot of that sort of for granted because, I mean, the older I get, the more it seems like most people aren't like me. They don't really,
But
most of the world doesn't think like any of the people in this conversation. You know, it's like NPC is kind of derogatory, but it's just like,
A
you know,
descriptor.
I'll say I was given like the average person just way too much credit, I guess. So, and it's, you know, and as near as I can tell, as on that thread of autonomy, I mean, the world is kind of getting weird and shitty in some ways and kind of dark. But I mean, what I tell my kids is like the competition has never been weaker. It's never been weaker. It's never been easier to get ahead of these fucking idiots that are, I don't know if I can swear or not.
Oh, yeah, you guys can say anything you fucking want.
It's never been easier to get ahead of these fucking people. I mean, they're buried in their phones, they're not paying attention, and you know, I can sort of look around and see that, like even in my generation, I'm like 44, gonna be 45, and it's like there's still a decent percentage, you know, that kind of were pretty switched on, but when I was by the end. Half the reason I left construction, because I didn't hate my job, you know, I really didn't. But part of the reason I hung on so long is because the money was good, but I also didn't hate it. It got me out there. It was like a lot of high level problem solving and interaction and that sort of stuff. And I enjoyed it. But I mean, by the end, it was like idiocracy. I mean, honestly, and the old people were always, I guess the old people have always been saying that in the trades. It's sort of been this thing, but when COVID sort of happened, I mean, I learned from brilliant people, you know, like it's on site working for the site generals and other trades that were super switched on, you know, older dudes that were super switched on. And there was like this combination of all those dudes were in the sort of heyday of construction, at least where I live, where they all got like shares and they had all these stock options and stuff like that. And then COVID happened and they started telling all these old dudes that they had to get these fucking shots and they had to do this and they had to do that. But these guys were all sitting on loads of money. So they were all just like, you know, and those old dudes just couldn't quit. You know how those old dudes were, you know, those old dudes that are like 20 years older than us. They just couldn't fucking give it up. It's like they were lifeblood was getting down on the job site and getting stuff done. But when COVID happened, man, half those dudes just sort of walked out the door and, you know, another chunk of them got fucked up from the shots. And all of a sudden it was like, I found myself being the smartest person in the room.
And that's dangerous, don't you think?
That's exactly what I was thinking. And I remember talking to Graham after, because we'd always have chats before the show, and I'm like, man, these guys are fucking retards. Like, you would not believe the shit that's, and I'm sort of telling him my horror stories from these, what I would call, like, I'm not talking like Mickey Mouse stuff. We're building hospitals, we're building
high rises,
we're building fucking high rises, and the engineers are fucking retarded. Like, literally breaking rules. Like, I'm not going to get into specific, but breaking rules that even me just being an ironworker welder know that's because that was how I came up. Know that these are like, there's a reason that they've established these sort of hard line, don't do this stuff. And the response in the room would just be like, well, there's not really another way to do it. So that's how we're going to do it. And I'd just be like, all right, well, when all those windows are broken in 3 years, when they all crack. Yeah.
Hello, Garland, Nixon here, and well, it ain't exactly Wednesday, but that's okay. Close enough. We're hanging out with Steve Poikonen. It's Griftbusters time. All right, I had to grab one of my tinfoil hats here. I cannot have a show. And by the way, If you want your own tinfoil hats, as you can see, there's various ways to get a tinfoil hat. If you want, Steve has a great one. I like that's pretty cool. But if you want your own tinfoil hat, just simply go to the website, go into the show notes, and you can click right there on my basically on the show notes. The link is there for the web store. It's right at the top, so you can get your own tinfoil hats. You're nobody if you don't have a tinfoil hat. All right, let's get going with Steve. I will say this. I told you I told you the story. I did get kicked off of X very, very briefly for 2 or 3 days for saying that Lindsey Graham is dead and it's a beautiful day and it's a wonderful day. I didn't say connect him. I just said he's dead and the sky is blue and their food tastes better. It's just a beautiful day. Lindsey Graham's dead, and they said it was hate speech and they threw me off. However, you can go on Twitter and you can literally see people saying, I hate that bastard. I'm glad he's dead. Fuck him. That's not hate speech, apparently. Apparently, it's not hate speech when you say, I hate him. I'm glad he's dead. May he burn in hell. All over. You can find that. But if you say he's dead, it's a nice day. That's unacceptable. Which
they've got it in for you, Garland. They do, because you're right. There were a lot more people that were a lot more, I don't know, upfront, less coy about it. And I did see a multitude of, I don't know, almost congratulatory posts to mystery heart illness. Maybe Russia. No, nobody really knows for sure, although there's a lot of circumstantial evidence at this point to suggest that Lindsey Graham was taken out in Ukraine. I don't know. What do you think about it? We haven't
I think
talked
so.
about this.
No, I think so. I mean, I put up articles on all my show. One of them where a month ago, you remember the Russians released this thing that says diplomats should leave Ukraine. It's dangerous. And in that, and I've shown it on a bunch of my, they specifically said drone industry, that we will be targeting the drone industry and drone technology. And then there's another article. Secret drone base that Lindsey Graham visited on Friday was targeted and struck with missiles shortly after he left. Shortly after he left? Perhaps it wasn't shortly after he left. I wonder if it's going to be an open casket. Perhaps not. But has he? Maybe he's been. They may say he's been cremated. Yeah, he was cremated on Friday. He was cremated by an Iskander missile. I don't think the Russians said let's kill him. Let's kill Lindsey Graham. But I do think the Russians said, stay the fuck out of these drone shops, because if we see one, we're going to blow it up soon as we see it. And if you happen to be there, let your conscience be your guide. I don't think they said, let's kill Lindsey Graham. But I think if they discovered a drone shop, they're going to blow it up. And if you happen to be in there, then perhaps you'll have a mysterious heart aortic tear suddenly thing. Because Steve, the government never tells you the truth. If they said he was blown up in a drone shop, that meant he had a heart attack at home. And if they say he had a heart attack at home, he was blown up in a drone shop. I never believed those bastards.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is that in the handful of interviews that Donald Trump was giving about it, or the handful of times that he was, doing a call-in or whatever, and it got brought up, he would refer to mystery heart thing, and then just the other day he was like, well, it turns out that's not right. I guess just a part of them blew up.
Yes.
And it's like, oh, really? Are you accidentally letting it out of the bag there? I mean, that's an odd phraseology for anything medical related.
Trump claims Lindsey's body literally blew up. Now, you notice he didn't say figuratively blew up, did he? He said literally blew up. Literally. What happened to him? His body literally blew up. Really? I didn't know your heart could do that.
It's possible.
And if there's 2,000 pounds of high explosive coming in at, I don't know, Mach 4 or something like that, it could probably cause you problems.
There is another possibility that we haven't discussed, and that was he was given a custom, I don't know, let's call it a pager, but of the like sit and spin variety. And he was given one of those by his good friends in the Israeli government. And he was removed from the playing field, as it were, as kind of a warning sign. Because if you recall, just the day or two before Lindsey Graham's demise, his final ride on the rainbow, Donald Trump was briefed by Israeli intelligence, and they were telling him, hey, man, you got to be careful because there's a lot of Iranians that have it out for you. And
oh, yes.
Israel had also suggested that at least 2, if not 3 of the quote unquote assassination attempts on Donald Trump were Iranian inspired, orchestrated, that kind of thing. So it is a possibility that this was a warning shot, as it were, to Donald Trump, which he responded immediately by bombing Iran. As soon as he found out that Lindsey Graham was dead, the very next thing he did was bomb Iran.
Oh, he probably had Netanyahu on the phone. Hey, I just called Don and say, hey, it's a shame it happened to your boy Lindsey. Yeah, I just don't know how to deal with it. Well, bombing Iran would make you feel better. Really? You think so, BB? Yeah, if I were you, you'll feel much better. Just bomb Iran. Okay, let's see.
We've heard a lot of your comments. You lost a big friend. I saw him in Ukraine on his way back, and we all saw the video. He didn't look so hot. I'm told by those who know him, maybe he looked a little off. He was tired. Look, the Russians have a habit of poisoning people they don't like.
No, well, the Russians poisoned him.
Once called for Putin to be, taken out. Do you have any suspicions or worries? Do you think we know the whole story about his death?
Well, I think we do. We've had great doctors, and they talked about, a certain part of his body literally blew up.
What was that? Oops. I mean, did I say blew up? I meant, tore and blood came out of the certain part of his eye. Shit. Didn't mean to say blew up. So I'm just saying Donald Trump sometimes has diarrhea of the mouth and doesn't know how to keep his mouth shut when he should. And I think, it's like the old saying, call for you, Dr. Freud on line 1.
Right.
Whatever you do, Don, don't say anything about missiles or him blowing up. Oh, okay. I won't say anything about missiles. Like when somebody says, whatever you do, don't trip. When you're walking across stage to get your award, whatever you do, don't trip. Oh, wham. Don't say anything about blowing up. Okay. I won't say he blew up. Where is he anyway? Well, he's in Ukraine, really? Yeah, and he's in Poland, yeah. And I think he's in D.C. and probably maybe part of him's by now flying over Bulgaria. It ain't the best day. It ain't the best day. Not a good day. It's a good day for the rest of the world, though. Very, very good day. Anyway, so let us get going and let's start OpenAI, our favorite group that's here to make things better for humanity. Says they got their first OpenAI's first hardware device is reportedly a screenless speaker that can move. It's when they can move. I don't need a speaker that can move because it probably has a microphone that can record me and maybe a camera too.
Well, of course it does. How else is it going to be able to listen to you and pull up your favorite Lindsey Graham quote playlists? Or, if it's not following you room to room as sort of this, hovering sentinel, then number one, how are you really going to get, your 90s R&B slow jams playlist in your ear everywhere you go? Number two, how are you going to feel safe? Really, yeah. I know that I would feel safer if a creepy little robot speaker was floating around the house following me everywhere I went.
Well, it's far better than that. Sources describe the device to Bloomberg as having a personality and being able to proactively learn about its owner over time. Well, I wonder if the things that it's learning about its owner over time could possibly be passed on to, I don't know, government agencies, Palantir, Unit 8200. So now we got a device. OpenAI's newly surfaced device sounds something of a departure from traditional smart speakers. Yeah, it really does. The machine would have listen to this. The machine would have access to a user's digital life, drawing off things like emails. It's weirdly described as involving mechanical elements that can move on their own. The device is designed to feel like a companion and become a physical manifestation of a physical manifestation of yeah, that don't sound good.
Yeah, no.
Is this the device? This is probably the device right here. You think it's a model. You think it's a guy. You think it's somebody from. That's probably the freaking device right there.
It's interesting to me that ChatGPT OpenAI is rolling this out right now as the Chinese have rolled back and curbed their AI companions.
Yes.
They determined, and just over the course of a couple of years of looking at it, Chinese government determined that humans were developing, I mean, very, very deep parasocial relationships with their AI chatbots. And so they were like, sorry, but we got to get rid of them. And there's a whole lot of people in China right now that are going through like the stages of grief over losing their AI companions. And yet we've got Sam Altman and everybody else involved in the AI race, the people at Anthropic, Google, you name it, who are doing everything possible to pour more AI companion style features into all of their products.
Yeah, wow. And they're saying that this is just the tip of the iceberg, right? So the bottom line is they haven't detailed its form factor yet. Oh yeah, I'm sure it depends. If you're a guy, it's going to be a hot babe in a like one of these silicone hot babes in a bikini. If you're a woman, it'll be some guy with a six-pack. You know what I mean? They will make it appear however it needs to. Like I remember there was this Star Trek episode where they landed on the planet and there was this man and there was this creature that he lived with. That was a weird creature that kind of ate you by sucking the salt out of your body. But whatever the case, the creature could make itself appear to be anything. And it appeared to be this beautiful woman who this guy like loved, and she died when the spaceship crashed there. So the creature was like his companion, and the creature looked like a beautiful woman to him and looked like whatever he needed. And it could make itself look like whatever you needed to look like, right, to be your companion. So I'm just saying, I'm sure AI, when you order it, they'll when you order it, what they'll probably do is like look at your online pages, look at everything you've ever done online. They'll come up with exactly what would be like the most beautiful woman to you. And they'll send it there. And a lot of guys will say, open the box and say, let's look at this. They'll open the box and they're like, their girl will just like hit them over the head. Wham, you son of a bitch. Did you order this? I didn't know it's going to look like this. Wham. So you get yourself beat to hell. I thought I was ordering a speaker. I didn't know it was going to be a naked model, for God's sake.
Oh man, totally unrelated. But I pirate the World Cup streams because I loathe FIFA as an organization. So like any good citizen globally, not even just American, I pirate the streams. The problem with that is that when you're pirating a live stream, there's a lot of spam ads that you have to click through in order to finally get it back onto the feed. And so we've got it on the big screen in the living room. Me and my girl are sitting there, and two of the pop-up ads were like some AI porn thing, and so I got made fun of for a solid half an hour because of that. But it's like, I'm really glad there were no kids around when we were pulling this up, because that's crazy. I thought we got rid of pop-ups 20 years ago anyway, but no, we didn't. There was legislation about this, I'm almost positive, but that's all gone by the wayside. So yeah, I mean, and it's also the price you pay when you pirate any live stream. Not that I ever would after the World Cup, and certainly not that I do whenever we do UFC commentary, because I mean that I would be personally offending one of Donald Trump's good friends, Dana White, and I don't want to do that.
No, I mean, I would never get an Android box so I could see every single channel in the world for nothing. That would be wrong. Certainly wouldn't ever do that. But if I did, then I'd watch every single channel in the world for nothing and probably just buy an Android box at the flea market for $100. But it's wrong for people to do that kind of crap, because I mean, look, come on, these cable TV billionaires, they got to have another 500-foot yacht, and it's our job to make sure they get it.
I'm doing my part.
Exactly. But yeah, so that's what we've got. Now we've got speakers. So now, because it started with, what is it? Google, you've got Alexa. I don't like those things. I wouldn't want one of those. Then Google has one. They had Nest or something like that. The Google Nest, I remember when this product, I know somebody put all this stuff in their house, and it's your thermostat, all of your stuff in your house gets put into this Google Nest network. And all of it works off your phone and all that kind of stuff. But again, they know what the temperature is in your house. They know when you're leaving. They know when you're going. They know what temperature you like, what you like. Every single thing that you do, every device in your house that you connect to that network is another data point that they can use to sell you stuff or just to know where the hell you were. I will guarantee you, if something happened and somebody turned up missing or something, they're like, Garland Nixon's a suspect. Suddenly they'd say, well, Garland, what time did you get home? Oh, and I came home and it was kind of hot. I turned the heat up at about 11 o'clock. No, you didn't, Garland. You got home at 9:51 and you actually turned the heat down. What?
I really wish this video that I'm making right now, what I'm about to say in it, would fully sink in for everyone. The truth of what I'm about to tell you would spread to the world. Because I think if people could fully acknowledge and accept what I'm about to say, things could actually start to change around here for the better. And this is just one example among thousands, but the point needs to be made again, and it probably needs to be made again and again and again until people start to really realize how this works, how our reality is informed and constructed, and what that is based on, which ultimately is little more than trust and belief. And that's it. So recently, you may have heard that 84-year-old Senator Mitch McConnell fell and was unconscious and was hospitalized.
Growing concern about the health of Senator Mitch McConnell, the Kentucky Republican and former majority leader, is 84 years old, and he's been hospitalized for 3 weeks now.
And no one had heard from him for weeks. And there was speculation all over social media that he actually died, and they just weren't telling anyone because they don't want to have a special election where Thomas Massey might get in or something. So they're trying to keep Mitch McConnell out of the spotlight and just pretend he's not gone.
But apparently, people don't like a majority senator disappearing with no explanation for 3 weeks. So the governor of Kentucky contacted him in a way that old people love: mail.
Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear has sent a letter to Kentucky Senator Mitch McConnell requesting an update on his health.
Dear Senator McConnell, over the last several weeks, Kentuckians have grown increasingly concerned about the current state of your health and well-being and ability to hold office in the United States Senate.
The fact that this letter exists is not a great sign, okay?
And the only word that we were getting coming out were things like this social media post from CNN's Scott Jennings claiming, I spoke to my old friend Mitch McConnell this morning.
Even stranger, yesterday, 2 Republican senators, John Thune, John Barrasso, both claimed they had 20-minute phone calls with Kentucky Senator Mitch McConnell, who's been in the hospital for almost a month. Scott Jennings, CNN, made the exact same claim. And I think I just assumed, like most normal people, that today we'd get like a video from the senator from the hospital.
Which then got lampooned by everyone saying, well, I spoke to Mitch McConnell for 20 minutes today about aliens and UFOs and the fact that we should end the Fed and how corrupt everything is. And it got to the point where so many people were posting, I spoke to my old friend Mitch McConnell in the hospital this morning posts that somebody asked AI to add it up, and they said if you added up all the posts claiming to have spoken to Mitch McConnell for 20 minutes in the hospital, it would have meant that he had been talking on the phone for over 48 straight hours. Because that's the only word we got in that time. It was coming from the mouth of people that you either trust their word on it, that they spoke to him and he's fine, or you don't. And that's it. It's ultimately based on trust and belief.
But who's going to believe that story?
I mean, never mind that we live in a world now where people are getting their voices cloned. And even if you did speak to Mitch McConnell on the phone, it doesn't mean you spoke to Mitch McConnell on the phone. I've been told right now that they've cloned my voice off of this channel and they're using it to sell Ethiopian Bibles on YouTube. I've not seen the commercial myself, but I'm not selling Ethiopian Bibles. But supposedly they took my voice, they've raised it half an octave or something, and they're using it to sell something. Doesn't mean I'm doing that. I'm not doing that. So even if somebody did speak to Mitch McConnell on the phone, we live in a time of generative AI. Is that really him? How do they know? Once you hear that story third hand, it's like a game of telephone. How do you know? How does anybody know? And the speculation over Mitch McConnell being alive or not got to the point that even the mainstream media outlets were asking, is Mitch McConnell secretly deceased? I mean, they were posting this in headlines. So fast forward to today when Mitch McConnell's camp releases this photograph of him holding a newspaper claiming that he's just fine now. He has no broken bones, no concussion, no heart attack, no stroke. He had a mild case of pneumonia, but that's about it. And he's fine in there and he's holding the current paper. So this is supposedly proof of life. And that's what's being sent out everywhere on all the mainstream outlets, that this is proof of Mitch McConnell is fine. But the truth is, you either believe this is a real picture of him holding a current newspaper and he's fine because the media said so, or you don't. It's ultimately based on trust. Do you believe it? Do you believe this is a real picture? A lot of people are saying this is an AI-generated picture.
This isn't real. What is real? How do you define real?
So currently we're living in a world where you have AI and you could generate anything. Video, realistic photos, pretty much anything you want. Doesn't mean it's real, obviously. But even before that, we had Photoshop. And even before Photoshop existed, there were ways to physically cut pictures, enhance parts of pictures, add things to the background, take things out. I mean, that's been going on ever since photography existed. And that's the real point. I mean, never mind that an 84-year-old man should probably retire, right? By the time you're getting to a point where you're falling down and you're gone for weeks from your job and you're getting sick and all this stuff is good, you probably shouldn't be a senator who's sitting up in a position of power that affects other people's lives in this country. Like, that probably should not be a thing at all anyway. And it's not ageist to say that. It's just the truth.
To finishing the NDA this week has been good bipartisan cooperation. And a string of
Are you good?
Okay, Mitch. Anything else you want to say, or should we just go back to your office? Do you want to say anything else to the press?
I mean, it's very sad, but it's a fact of life that people age. And by the time you're freezing in the middle of press conferences.
What are your thoughts on running for re-election in 2026?
What are my thoughts about what?
Running for re-election in 2026.
Then the 81-year-old Senate Minority Leader stood silent. An aide steps in.
Did you hear the question, Senator? Running for re-election in 2026?
Yes. Still just a blank expression.
All right, I'm sorry, you all. We're going to need a minute. Senator Benny.
A member of his security detail comes forward.
Head outside, son. Come with us. Okay.
Somebody else have a question? Please speak up.
Probably you should step down. By the time we have senators like Dianne Feinstein just being told, just say aye, they're telling her, just vote yes on something.
Submit it. Yeah, just say aye. Okay, just aye. Thank you.
Senator Durbin.
How is that a person of sound mind doing the job they were elected to do? It's not. It's clearly not. We shouldn't be having people who are 84 and 90 years old still being senators and congresspeople. It's not the way anything should be done. But let's just set that aside for a minute. Is Mitch McConnell okay or not? The ultimate truth to answer that question is really just whether or not you believe this is a real picture. This photograph that's being shared by Fox News and C-SPAN and CNN, is this real? And a lot of people do not believe this is a real picture. I mean, this is the level that we are now at. You have WHS 11 out of Louisville, ABC News having to come out with their reporters and officially say things like, people still don't believe this and they think it's AI, but really we think it's real. Like, they're trying to convince you that this photograph is real.
Mitch McConnell announced he is alive and well, but the internet is still not convinced. Many people say that this photo, which was attached to the press release Mitch McConnell sent out today, is fake or AI. While we haven't verified any sort of AI usage within the photo, we can see that Mitch McConnell is holding a newspaper from today. If you zoom in, you can see that he is holding the sports page from today's Washington Post. And although AI image detection services are not that reliable, when I ran them through detection software, it came back as most likely real. Other indicators of AI-generated images, like fuzzy background, fuzzy people, or fuzzy objects, are also not seen in the image. And we do know that AI has trouble with fine details like the letters that would have been on that newspaper. But even if these details were added in post, we know that this picture, or at least this newspaper, is from today. So as of right now, Mitch McConnell is alive and well, despite rumors circulating.
Just in the clip I showed you, look at how much she has to hedge. First, she's talking about we put it in AI detection software, which is known to be unreliable, but it said there's a low probability. So first of all, it didn't say zero. Secondly, AI detection software is notoriously unreliable. I have put real photos I took in there, and it says they're AI. You can also put 100% AI photos in there, and it will say they are 100% real. So those things are worthless, first of all. Secondly, she's like, even if details are added later, we know it's today's paper that he's holding, so we know it's real. Like,
even if these details were added in post, we know that this picture, or at least this newspaper, is from today. So as of right now, Mitch McConnell is alive and well.
But that's not how that works. I can Photoshop today's paper into any photo right now. That does not make it real. I can do that. So that is really easy to do, especially in the era of Photoshop. But now that AI is a thing, you can do that in a few clicks. That is nothing. Okay, so that doesn't mean anything at all. It means less than nothing that he's holding today's paper. Like maybe once upon a time that worked on people. Although again, I will say, even back in 100 years ago, you could have done something like that. It would have taken physically cutting a picture up, but it's something that could have been done. So that doesn't mean anything. Having to say all that doesn't then equal, so this is definitely a picture that's absolutely real. Whether or not this is a real photo isn't even really the point, though. What's really the point is that's the level we're even at, that we have the media now not just reporting on what's supposedly happening, but trying to openly convince you that it's true. This shouldn't be a thing, right? We shouldn't be to the level where our media is trying to implore people to believe them, that what they're reporting on is true. But that is the level that we're at. Obviously, that's the level where you never would have saw this on the TV. Back when there were 3 television stations, can you imagine Walter Cronkite? Please believe me, this really happened.
And that's the way it is.
But that's the level we're at. I've seen a lot of people, a lot of posts claiming this is an AI picture, but that's not even ultimately the point here. It's not about AI. Because unless you're in the hospital room with Mitch McConnell yourself personally, you don't know. So you have to base your information on whether or not Mitch McConnell is okay on this photograph and the institutional trust of our media and our government. That's how our society runs. It's largely like 99% based on the trust in our institutions. And that's the point. This is about the reality that we live in and how that reality is constructed. And it's constructed based on trust. If you were alive and old enough to understand what was going on the night of August 4th, 1964, and you happen to be watching television sometime before midnight, you may have seen that the President of the United States interrupted television broadcasts across the nation to tell everybody that 2 U.S. destroyers had been attacked in the Gulf of Tonkin.
My fellow Americans.
Okay, I was going to play for you the clip of LBJ announcing the Gulf of Tonkin incident where he says that there's renewed hostile tensions and that 2 U.S. destroyers had been attacked, where he broke into the news to say this to the American people. But I can't do that because some guy named Stephen Stuckey apparently made a concert drama commissioned by the Dallas Symphony Orchestra to honor the 100th anniversary of LBJ's birth. And they used clips of historical importance such as this speech in their orchestra thing. And so now it's all copyrighted if I try to use it to play it for you in an editorial video about history. And I'm sorry for the rant, but I think they do this on purpose just so you can't play these clips. I think that's the whole reason why we live in such a stupid system. Everything about this is dumb, but I digress. And that he was going to seek a resolution on it. to escalate the situation that was going on over there. And the media reported on this, and it was talked about for years. And whether or not you believed that occurred or not, the night of August 4th, 1964, is based upon whether or not you believed not just President Johnson, but whatever agencies were feeding President Johnson that information. In this case, it came from the NSA. Your knowledge of what happened in the Gulf of Tonkin on the night of August 4th, 1964 was based upon whether or not you trusted and believed the information you were getting from our intelligence agencies and our president, because you weren't there. You weren't on a boat in the Gulf of Tonkin. So you didn't see it with your own eyes. You saw a news report of our president breaking into national broadcast, which must have been considered pretty serious for a president to interrupt national broadcast television to bring you some information. Seems very authoritative. It's coming from the president, and he's interrupting national TV to tell you about it. So did it happen? He said it did. He interrupted national TV. He gave a speech interrupting national TV to tell the American people that this is what happened. But did it happen? No. It didn't happen at all. It didn't happen, like, it wasn't confused. It didn't happen at all. There were no North Vietnamese vessels even present in the area at the time. It would not come out till decades later, many decades later, that the NSA had deliberately skewed intelligence information to create the impression that this attack had even occurred. And the Gulf of Tonkin incident, as it came to be known, is what got the United States more directly into the Vietnam War. I mean, they'd sent over advisors or whatever they always do when we're not officially at war. We're just sending over some kind of training advisors or whatever, that whole gray area thing they like to do. It's not boots on the ground. It's advisors. I guess they're floating above the ground. I don't know, whatever. So they had already been a little bit involved, but this particular event here is what escalated everything. And it was based on not false information like, oh, later they just figured out it was incorrectly reported. It was purposefully false information to justify the war. And this isn't a singular incident, like this just happened one time. You've probably seen the clip, but if you haven't, I'm going to play it again, of Patrick Clausen from the think tank Washington Institute for Near East Policy, where he comes out and says, this is how America gets to war.
Crisis initiation is really tough. And it's very hard for me to see how the United States president can get us to war with Iran. Which leads me to conclude that if, in fact, compromise is not coming, that the traditional way of America gets to war is what would be best for U.S. interests. Some people might think that Mr. Roosevelt wanted to get us into World War II, as David mentioned. You may recall we had to wait for Pearl Harbor. Some people might think Mr. Wilson wanted to get us into World War I. You may recall he had to wait for the Lusitania episode. Some people might think that Mr. Johnson wanted to send troops to Vietnam. You may recall we had to wait for the Gulf of Tonkin episode. We didn't go to war with Spain until the until the Maine exploded. And may I point out that Mr. Lincoln did not feel he could call out the Federal Army until Fort Sumter was attacked, which is why he ordered the commander at Fort Sumter to do exactly that thing which the South Carolinians had said would cause an attack. So if, in fact, the Iranians aren't going to compromise, it would be best if somebody else started the war.
All of the major wars that have happened in over a century now, this is exactly how they've done it, this exact way. So it's based upon lies, but it's lies that don't come out as lies until decades later, sometimes many decades later. But at the time, people believed it, and they're probably putting up flags in the yard and rah-rah, go the troops and all this stuff for a thing that was false, that was a lie, that was drafting people. They did a draft over this.
Of course, is the order of the birthdays. And those will determine how the 19-year-olds next year, those from 19 to 26 will be subject to the draft. So let's go down the list and give you the ascending order in which they were drawn tonight.
Ultimately. And they were drafting people to go fight and die in this war that was based upon lies. calculated lies, not misinformation. Oopsie, we just accidentally got it wrong. Purposeful, straight up lie. But for the people in 1964 who watched the president interrupt the TV, if they believed what the president was saying, that became their reality. So anything that was told to them next about what was going to be done in Vietnam was going to be justified based upon this story that was told to them and the way in which it was told, interrupting national broadcast before midnight, the president breathlessly telling you about this, like that becomes their reality. It wasn't until decades later, the former U.S. Secretary of Defense Robert McNamara admitted there was no attack in the Gulf of Tonkin.
And events afterwards showed that our judgment that we'd been attacked that day was wrong.
The craziest thing about some of that is that while they were trying to impress everyone on the idea that if you saw it on the news, it was true, but if you saw it in a movie theater, it was fake, they were playing news clips at the beginning of every movie. Like, this is real, the movie is fiction.
Outside Blair House, the president's temporary Washington home, extreme fanatics of the Puerto Rican Nationalist Party try to force their way in, guns blazing, to assassinate the President of the United States. As the plot is foiled, police and Secret Service men examine the damage. A picket on the iron fence is knocked off.
I mean, they were being shown the magic trick of Hollywood right there in the theater, and yet somehow being told, this over here is real and that over there is fake, and you're supposed to think in your mind that what you're being shown in the clips of the news, that's real. The things they're doing in the Hollywood magic show, that would never be done over here in this news. You're not even supposed to question it. Why wouldn't they question it, though? Like, why wouldn't that be a natural question? Why? Because they trusted these institutions that when they said this one's real and that one's a movie, that they were telling the truth. That is ultimately the only real difference between the one and the other. And that is how society has always been. It didn't start this way because of the advent of technology. This is how societies have always been. You either trust the people that are in the positions of power in your society, that they are being honest with you when they tell you the nature of your reality around you and what that is, or you don't, because they either have not earned your trust or they've broken your trust. But it's still ultimately based on trust. That's where the belief comes from. And historically, when the institutions of power cannot earn that trust in the traditional ways they should be, well, then you have things like the Inquisition, where they will torture you and threaten to kill you if you don't swear that you believe what it is they're trying to get you to believe. And I just don't think that enough people have let it fully sink in. I mean, I don't know. I've been talking to older family members that were born in the boomer generation, and they have told me things that they're just now coming to the realization after all this time in their lives that perhaps some of the ways in which they were raised maybe weren't as good as they thought. Things like being taught never to question anyone older than you. If someone's older than you, they're an authority figure compared to you. You should never question them. If someone's in an official position, like a preacher or a doctor.
Doctors in all parts of the country were asked, "What cigarette do you smoke, doctor?" Once again, the brand named most was Camel.
Or a politician or a teacher. Never question them. They are an authority. You are not. Your child. Don't question anything. They were taught not to question anything, which is really great for putting you into a situation where all of these things are being done to you in your country and in the world, and you think it's okay, and you think it's good, and you think it's justified. It just teaches people to shut down critical thinking and not question their reality at all, and it leads them to living in a completely false reality that is based upon lies. And now we live in a time of AI, so all of those lies can be made to look so much more real than they ever were. I have an upcoming video on all these UFO videos that are coming out of the government. Like, they're releasing all these UFO videos. We watched Spielberg's Disclosure Day movie, and not to spoil it for anyone, but it's kind of built into the title. The whole thing is based upon showing people videos. We live in a time of generative AI that is so good, and we don't even know how long that's been had. That's the other thing. We don't know how long generative AI has been had by institutions, but I can tell you it's been a lot longer than people probably realize. I mean, they had voice cloning technology out of Los Alamos in 1999 they were reporting they had that, and it was just as good and you couldn't tell the difference. So that's back in the 20th century, technically, that they already had that, okay? So how do we know? We don't. The point is, all of our society is based upon trust, which works if you have a high trust society. I don't know anybody who can tell me they believe everything coming out of this government and this legacy mainstream media following COVID. And how many times have we been lied to about things? How many times have we been lied to about things? That's a question I could never answer for you. But once you see this and once you fully recognize all of the major events, many of them are based upon, were you physically there in the room? Because if not, you are trusting somebody. You're trusting the television to tell you the truth and the images on that TV to be real. You're trusting the government to be honest with you about things, even though they have a history of being completely dishonest. And actually, if you become a scholar of history, as we have tried to do here at this channel, what you will realize is you can go back hundreds of years and find things, and it's really questionable as to whether or not those things ever happened at all. So our reality is based upon trust. And that works if you live in a society that has high trust. That works if you have a government that's not totally corrupt, and agencies that are not, federal agencies that are not totally revolving doors for the corporations they're supposed to be regulating, and politicians that are not receiving kickbacks from the corporations that they are supposed to be writing laws about, and things like that. But we don't live in any of that. We don't live in any of that. So when Mitch McConnell, who's 84 and should have retired years ago, when he puts out a photograph of himself holding a newspaper and you're supposed to accept that as proof, maybe in 1964 people would have accepted that, but today nobody is. I've seen nothing but questions and people thinking that this is AI and it's fake. And of course, that's the time we're living in. That's how our society works. That's how everything is based. It's ultimately based on trust. That's why we named the Trust Game series about our financial system, the Trust Game. All of this, everything, all of these, when you stop at a stoplight and you expect the person on the other side of the street to also stop, so when your light turns green, you can go, that's trust. We all have to trust each other. Our society is all based on this. But this trust has got to be, it's supposed to be earned. That's the thing about trust. Trust is supposed to be earned. This trust got lost a long time ago, and they're not doing anything really, and I've seen nothing that is building it back in a way that anyone should accept without question. Almost really anything that's coming out at all about anything. I don't know how anyone is at this point. We've been on a need-to-know basis and under a national security blanket since 1947. How would we know anything that's going on at all? Why would we expect to be told the truth about anything? I just wish people would look at things like this and recognize what it actually means. It's not about Mitch McConnell. If he is recovering, then I hope he has a speedy recovery. And then he retires, because he should have done that a long time ago. But that's really it's not about him, and it's not even the point. Do we trust these institutions to tell us the truth about what is happening in the world, which they are telling whatever story they're telling to justify whatever it is they're doing, to justify sending billions of dollars to other countries, to justify all the stuff that's going on? Do we trust that or not? Actually, it's not even that, really. We're not even down to that anymore. We're down to, do you even believe this happened at all? Period. We're not adding things like, is what's happening in the best interest of the American people? We stopped asking that question a long time ago. That used to be the main thing that was questioned all the time. But ever since 9/11 and the Patriot Act and the Yellow Cake and the Forever Wars, I think we've just stopped asking whether or not what's going on has anything to do with the American people's best interest or the American people at all. I don't think we even ask those questions anymore. There's no accountability at all. I don't know why anyone would expect accountability out of the same system that's doing all of this heinous stuff. I mean, why would you expect that system to correct itself? That doesn't even make sense. But now we're down to the last layer of reality being stripped away, when the main question now is just literally, did this even happen? And this isn't just a problem that's happening in America. This is happening all over the world right now.
And when you see the plan, I think you'll see that we've put a lot of effort into getting it right.
When did you see the plan?
Well, I have not seen all of the plan. But I'm assured, and I, of course, am in touch and doing my bit as a department to make sure that we can do as much as we can to benefit the British economy to do so.
Absolutely. Just on that point. So you haven't seen the plan, but you're saying you're sure that when I see the plan, I'll recognise that this government is getting it right. You haven't seen it. Do you know if Mr. Healy or Al Khans had seen the plan?
They have been, of course, they've been working very closely with the Prime Minister on the plan for a considerable amount of time, yes.
Thank you for clarifying that. So they've seen the plan, and yet they resigned. They're
and
not
we
happy.
are now in
They're
the
not
final
happy
points of implementing the plan and getting it right before release.
They saw the plan. They weren't happy. They resigned. You haven't seen the plan. You're happy. Why do you think they've resigned?
Because I have faith.
And I just don't know how in a post 9/11, post COVID, post truth, AI world, anyone would trust anything. But that trust is what our society is supposed to be based on. It's how our reality has been constructed. So where does that leave everybody? That's where we are. And I wish more people would see it for what it is. I love you guys. Talk to you soon.
Welcome back to New World Next Week. I'm James Corbett of CorbettReport.com.
And I'm James Evan Pilato of MediaMonarchy.com. We're getting ahead of a bigger issue and protecting customers from higher costs in the future. We have got that story, plus Mossad assets. But first, this week in RIP, rest in peace, but also other words we will not use here. Was Lindsey Graham assassinated? Putin aide blames Israel's Mossad amid MAGA's poisoned claim, and Trump is next. Damn, Corbett, this sounds like from Saoirse Fall from back in the day. They also claim, of course, Trump is next, which is like Angel is next, which any 9/11 student should know what that means. Grabbing this from Hindustan Times, the death of South Carolina Republican Senator Lindsey Graham has opened a Pandora's box of conspiracy theories on social media, James, which I refer to as the internet. Leading the charge, far-right influencer Laura Loomer, who has claimed that Iran or Russia poisoned the senator, who recently visited Ukraine in an official capacity. The senator's death surprisingly came just hours after he returned from Kiev. Graham's office said earlier that he died from a brief illness on Saturday night. He was 71. Later, his office revealed the senator's cause of death as a tear in his aorta due to cardiovascular disease. But the sudden nature of his death has sparked theories and doubts in the public mind, which is pretty much all anybody has in their minds anymore about every news story in the world, especially about a foreign plot to kill the senator being at work. So much so that FBI Director J. Edgar Boozer announced later on Sunday that the agency will investigate the senator's death, even as MAGA, because it's just one giant unit that decides on its own. Even as the MAGA claim that the senator was poisoned by either Russia or Iran, a completely different hypothesis has emerged from the Russian side. Top advisor of Russian President Vladimir Putin, Israel's counterintelligence agency Mossad could be behind the death of the 71-year-old senator. Also read, what is an aortic rupture? The senator, notably, was a close ally of the Israel cause throughout his political career, which, James, I feel like from how old this dude always looked, to look and see that he's only been there for the last 20 years, I was actually kind of surprised. He's not a decades and decades long guy like Chucky Schumer. Pretty great performance from Chuck Schumer in Congress today. After his death, Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu remembered him as a good friend and said that he already misses Graham. It's like, okay, you went too far. I can believe you say, oh, I'm sad that this other politician died, but that's your good buddies and you're already sad about him being gone. You pushed it too far. Rest in war. And yeah, all the armchair conspiracists thought it was this other guy. Mitch McConnell says after weeks of speculation that dude is dead, no proof of life, everybody's lying. that he was just in the hospital because he fell. And of course, when you go to the hospital, you're also going to contract pneumonia as well. Posting a proof of life picture with he and his wife that, of course, the memers instantly turned into he was a dead zombie and she's alive. And right there, McConnell says after weeks of speculation, hospitalization was due to fall and pneumonia. But I think really, honestly, his wife's Chi-Com connections are far more interesting to investigate, Elaine Chow. And as we are piling up the RIPs, New Zealand icon Sam Neill had been sick with pneumonia before death. Co-star says, grabbing that from Stuff NZ. And James, I was actually just watching a horror documentary which kept showing Sam Neill in some of his bigger roles in the 90s. And the most horrifying thing is Sam Neill said, salvation lies in vaccination. It's like the words came out of his mouth of madness. Horror fans will get that joke. Sam Neill talks new film, says salvation lies in vaccines. February 4th, 2021. So not very surprising there. And yes, it's always better, when we've just got videos of them saying, I love all this COVID stuff. I've got 18 boosters and you should too. And then whoops, later they're dead. But the one we are sad about here to announce here in the Media Monarchy Kingdom, RIP to a giant in the field of independent media, John Rappaport, passed away July 8th, 2026. He knew it was coming. He posted his pre-recorded farewell message, which his executive producer has shared and made the announcement. I will include the links, James, to just a search on Corbett Report for John Rappaport. And I'll link to my one interview with John Rappaport from 2014, where we talked about his article that maybe some of the giants of jazz were also MK Ultra subjects. Rest in peace, rest in war, James?
Exactly right. Well, rest in peace to John Rappaport, as you say,
Absolutely.
an OG, longtime conspiracy realist. And I hope people will familiarize themselves with the stuff in my archive, in your archive, and of course his work generally. It deserves to be remembered. But having said that, yes, there is a roundup of rascals in this rest in peace segment as well, including, of course, Lindsey Graham and the hello, fellow conspiracy realists. You like conspiracy theories, right? Well, it was definitely Putin who killed Lindsey Graham. Source, trust me, bro. If you want a refutation of that, I'll throw in a link to Andrew Karibko's newsletter on Substack, Stop the Madness, Putin Didn't Kill Lindsey Graham, in which he provides the opposite viewpoint on that particular one. But hey, maybe it was Israel? But why? I mean, no one has been a bigger supporter or fan of Israel in the U.S. Congress critter nexus than Lindsey Graham. And just like you, I have remembered Lindsey Graham for all of my political consciousness of the past couple of decades. So I am flabbergasted to find out he only started in, 2003 or something? I would have assumed he went back to the 70s or something like that. Anyway, no big loss, but like with all of these creatures that die in the swamp, it's not like the swamp is going to get any less fetid. It's just that different swamp creatures will emerge to take his place. And from what I understand, his sister is going to serve out the rest of his term or something. Like, I don't know. I don't know how this American system works over there. And with regards to Mitch McConnell, yeah, it is funny seeing the memes about that proof of life picture and how this can't be real, et cetera, et cetera. But it just goes to show that even if there is truly nothing whatsoever happening, they can just literally just not tell you anything for a couple of weeks, and then people online can go crazy with the speculation, etc. And then they can come out and go, look, you're all crazy, I'm alive. So I don't know. Again, I don't think it will fundamentally change the direction of the United States, whether Mitch McConnell lives or dies. So I'm not particularly hanging on my edge of my seat about it, but it is interesting to speculate. And as you say, maybe the most interesting part about it is his wife? Question mark? Yeah.
Big time connections to just multi-billionaire Jiang Zemin and shipping and all that sort of stuff. Kind of sounds like, I don't know, business as usual. But James, I swear, I used to joke back in college because we all had our kind of college town jobs, mostly service industry kind of things. We're also, of course, youngsters who like to party, and sometimes you have trouble making it into that work shift the next time. I had the idea that was like, as long as you have someone covering your shift, it's allowed at any employment across America. So we just extrapolated out to this level. Yeah, it's like, oh, how important is your job if some rando without any experience can suddenly replace you, family or not? hey, where's the foreman? We really got a lot of work to do on this really complex construction project. Oh, he died. His brother from 7-Eleven's going to come and cover it. It's like, okay, can everybody do that? No, only your important Congress critters can do that, James. That's see, if you know President Pilata, that's how I would run things here. Thankfully, that's never going to happen. That's how we get going. On New World Next Week, episode 637. As we move to our second story, well, I'll just have a whole little triptych here of, I think, pretty interesting Oregon stories. Now, you know, I used to live in Portland, Oregon for about 15 years. Still a lot of interesting, fascinating things going on there. Because even though we don't live there, we still love it. We still kind of miss it, even though we know we don't want to live there anymore. Oregon data centers face sharp electricity hike under new Power Act. The state of Oregon's utility regulator implementing a new rule that will raise the electricity bills of data centers and other large energy users to allow lower rates for other customers. To allow lower rates. That doesn't mean you're going to get them. The Oregon Public Utility Commission approved updated electricity rates for data centers and other residential and commercial customers that Portland General Electric, PGE, was required to change under a state law known as the Protecting Oregonians with Energy Responsibility, the Power Act. Under the law, PGE will raise rates by an average of 29% on data center customers, while residential customers will see an average decrease of 1.3%. Commercial rates will fall by an average of 2.1%, and other industrial customers' rates will decline by an average of 1.4%. PUC estimated the move will impact about 963,000 customers across PGE's service territory. I'm sure that would have included us if we were living there and where we used to live. These changes ensure that costs created by data centers in PGE's territory are more accurately reflected in their rates, said Commission Chair Lee Thatani. By putting this structure in place now, we're getting ahead of a bigger issue, citation needed, enabling responsible data centers to pay their own way and protecting customers from higher costs in the future. PGE's rate changes officially took effect today after a month-long review by PUC after the changes were delayed from their original implementation date in early June to accommodate a more in-depth review. It is the first utility in Oregon to adapt a new rate schedule for data center customers under the law, the Power Act, signed into law last year by Governor Tina Kotek after the legislation passed the Democratic-controlled legislature on votes that largely, of course, went along party lines in both chambers. Governor Kotek said in a statement that the Power Act was intended to ensure fairness and accountability when large energy users like data centers take up more load on Oregon's electrical grid. And James, I wonder, though, is it battle of the day late, dollar short, white liberal governor ladies? Because it's contagious. New York Governor Kathy Hochul enacts nation's first statewide moratorium on building new data centers. So that's maybe some not unmitigated good news, but I would argue they only care now that it's in the news and they want to get out in front of the parade and act like they're leading it when, of course, they are always behind. Another story from Oregon that I think is pretty related. Proposed Oregon radar sites to detect airborne threats draws environmental concerns. This basically looks like the Fed saying, we want to put in a bunch of radars and satellites so we can tell if we're being attacked by the Chicoms or the Russians. But they're not putting it in Portland where all the libs go. They're putting it out in the country. Do the words Malheur, refuge, standoff ring any bells? You might remember in Malheur, Oregon, that is one of their counties. The Bundys, the Ammon Bundys, they joined in on the Malheur standoff. All of these stories again that were going on when it was black man bad, like orange man bad. Of course, they were doing that because of these awful Democrats. So now I will be really interested to see how this story goes when MAGA wants to put a bunch of radars in places where MAGA don't want it. It is a beautiful place. Again, there's Portland, and then there's the entire rest of Oregon and the other legal shenanigans that, again, you remember, you got to start out with a good acronym because you're not going to get any good coverage and any good sloganeering if you don't have a good acronym like the Power Act or the Peace Act. People for the Elimination of Animal Cruelty Exemptions. Animal rights activists move closer to banning hunting in Oregon. Petition has got enough signatures. They say it is going to go on the ballot, James. This would ban all hunting in Oregon, which again is a little tiny Portland and a whole other giant state that knows and loves the outdoors and the environment. And this, I don't think will really go well. This strikes me as one of those moves that they want to push you to see how far you'll actually go if we can just goad you into, I don't know, freaking out and trying to occupy some national park. James, that is an Oregon trilogy for you.
Very interesting stories, all of them. So I hope people will check into them in the show notes. But yes, specifically on the data center story, I think you're exactly right. Yeah, of course, the politicians like to get out in front and say, hey, guys, we're leading this parade. And of course, what they're probably trying to do is take the very real movement of people who are very angry about the data centers and steer it into some sort of regulatory process. And don't worry, guys, we'll charge them more for electricity. And it's all okay. And once they smooth it all over, then people can go back to their lives. See, you protested and it worked. If you don't want to see this movement go in that direction, I'll posit a couple of things. One, the answer to that isn't to go, okay, well, then we shouldn't protest because, they're just going to steer it in whatever direction. No, the answer is to take over those protests and do them yourself. And don't allow some politician to come in and try to smooth things over with some regulatory obfuscation. So if you are interested in not following some politician that's pretending to lead the parade, but lead your own parade, boy, have I got a resource for you. It's called reclaimfuture.com. It's the website for Reclaim Our Future, which is promising a national day of action against AI data centers. We aim to build a nonpartisan, nonviolent alliance of activists, advocates, independent media outlets, individuals, influencers, and organizations who are ready to hit the streets and raise their voices. It's time we collectively take a stand against the rapid acceleration in data center development. And they have a host an event button, which will take you to a map of the US. And you can, you can see if there's an event in your area. And if there isn't an event in your area, oh, I guess it's on me. Okay, you can add your event, start one yourself, and let people know that it's happening and advertise it. So they're trying to organize a national day of action August 1st. I know Derek Brose, Hakeem Anwar, other people are involved in this movement. So I hope people will at least check it out at reclaimfuture.com. And also on that note, people will remember from my Solutions Watch about Dune and the Butlerian Jihad and AI data centers and all of that earlier this year. I was talking to Hakeem Anwar about his AI data center map and the accompanying report. Well, that report is now finally available, so people can go to aidatacentermap.org to get that report on the data center issue, to become informed about it. And now the data center map is up and running. And again, you can explore the map and add information about data centers in your area, etc. So there's a lot of valuable resource there for people who are not just going to sit back and let some politician try to smooth things over here. No, this is a genuine, real movement, and what it is and what it becomes is up to us, not them.
I mean, it's kind of on brand for New York's Governor Kathy Hochul. She was the one who wanted to ban, cook stoves and things. Oh, whoops, and then was busted in her own photographs using the same thing she says you're not allowed to use. But I think in some ways the inspiration from our British brothers and sisters destroying all those ULEZ cameras, the ultra low emission zone cameras. Dude, the flock revolt here in the States is on as well. People know what they are now. Flock, these giant surveillance cameras, think of them again as your Amazon Ring door. Your Flock is just the surveillance state that they sell to people in a fun way that keeps you safe, except it never actually does. They never seem to really work in places where they're really needed. So the Flock revolt is on here in the States as well. And we can call that not unmitigated good news. As we move to our third and final story, man, this guy was a weekly mention on New World Next Week back in the day. He was quite the boogeyman because I don't know if you know, people might have just joined this party, but about 20 years ago, still doing this work, we were really worried that U.S. and Israel were going to collude together and go to war against Iran or something. Grabbing it from Zero Hedge, U.S. officials say Iran's Ahmadinejad was Mossad asset met with intel chief in Hungary. Iran's former hardline president put his face up. You're like, do you remember that face? Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, of all people. The New York Times out with a bombshell report which alleges that Israel's Mossad for years sought to cultivate him as an Israeli intelligence asset. The apparent multi-year effort to recruit and reinstall Ahmadinejad as leader of Iran has come to nothing at a moment his status and fate remain unclear amid the fog of war. and after a prior U.S.-Israeli strike on his house during the opening salvos of Operation Epic Fury resulted in him being whisked away from his Tehran neighborhood by his bodyguards. Hadn't heard anything about that. The story, which cites U.S. officials who are, for whatever reason, choosing this moment to leak the insider info, begins in the following. In early 2024, the rector of the university in Budapest received a startling request from a top Hungarian government official. The official told the rector, Professor Gergely Deli, the Ludovica University of Public Service should hold a climate change conference and extend an invitation to an unlikely guest, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, the widely reviled former president of Iran. Even more shocking was the reason. The official told Mr. Deli that the conference was merely a front, like a vaccination drive when they really just want to gather up all your DNA. For Mr. Ahmadinejad to have secret discussions in Budapest with intelligence operatives from Israel, Mr. Ahmadinejad's avowed enemy. You can believe that. And we go back to October 11th, 2009. James, how many years even is that? The pilot episode of New World Next Week. Very first episode, very first story. Ahmadinejad was born a Jew. Good night, everybody. So are you telling me, James, that 17 years later, what we said on the very first New World Next Week episode now has been vetted and proven by the New York Times?
Maybe. Yes, I hope people will actually go and check out that story from, as you say, October 11th, 2009, the very first pilot episode of New World Next Week, which linked back to a Telegraph story. Mahmoud Ahmadinejad revealed to have Jewish past, which takes its cue from a photograph of Ahmadinejad where he was holding his identity card, and that exposed, he doxed himself because Ahmadinejad is not his original birth name. He was originally Saburgian, which is a Jewish name meaning cloth weaver. And so the Telegraph wrote this whole story about it and about his family and how they changed their name to, once they converted to Islam, and because they were actually Jewish and all of this. And we reported on it at that time. But also the second ever episode of New World Next Week, which was for some reason just 4 days later on October 15th, 2009. It involved the first ever amendment correction edition of a New World Next Week story where we reported on The Guardian, which just a few days after that Telegraph report came out with Ahmadinejad has no Jewish roots, in which they tried to basically poo-poo all of this and say, no, Saburgian is not a well-known Jewish name, and it doesn't mean cloth weaver, and all of this. Make of that what you will. At any rate, they do admit, well, yes, his birth name was not Ahmadinejad, it was Saburgian. But, nothing to see here. Who cares? Who cares why they changed their name? Anyway, yeah, it's a crazy story. But, fast forward 15, 16, 17 years and okay, right. It's exactly. I mean, it lines up anyway, regardless of whether or not he is actually from a Jewish family, whatever. The point is, yes, he was colluding with Israeli intelligence agents in a quest and a bid to come back to power. And that's sort of what this revolves around. Ahmadinejad is not likely to take over in Iran anytime soon under any normal circumstances. But hey, maybe if Mossad had their thumb on the scale during some sort of regime change operation that, oh, by the way, they were running. Remember when it was reported earlier this year, Mossad is there in the protests in Iran, leading the way and supplying guns and arms and stuff. Yeah. So again, this is part of a much deeper operation. The roots go deep, and maybe right back to Ahmadinejad's real roots as a Saburgian.
Hey, they say Hitler had Jewish blood as well. So this is also kind of in keeping with sort of what I would call historical conspiracy theorizing, or possibly agitprop, because it's meant to agitate. The propaganda is meant to aggravate people. I'll also include a link. And James, I got my speculation about why those episodes are so close together. Our show on this day, 16 years ago today in 2010, episode, I don't even know what number that one is. Amiri abducted, Kelly suicided, farmers bankrupted. From July 15th, 2010, in the first couple of seconds, you'll hear me counting us in, because back in the old days, you could only put up 10 minutes, and we still, to this day, shoot these as though they are live, so we don't have to do a bunch of heavy surgery and post-production kind of editing. So that's a fun one to listen to. I heard it playing today, James, and I was like, why am I counting things off? 4 days later, I wonder if we were already lining up for, hey, this is the day. I was about to bring up a calendar, but I didn't want to mess up my video. I wonder if the pilot episode we just shot on whatever day we could, and that very next episode is actually my Wednesday and your Thursday, as we have done these shows for nearly a couple of decades. We run NewWorldNextWeek.com for all your monarchy hats and your Corbett gears and your USBs and DVDs. And I know, James, you and I were talking off mic a little earlier before we got taping. I was showing you my new CD I got in, and you're asking the question, do people have CD players? I think people still have DVD players, and that's a great thing you can get over at NewWorldNextWeek.com. They can't delete it. They can't tell you your server's offline. You know, you'll need some power from a data center, though. I also get the exclusive audio of these New World Next Week episodes and play them on my radio stream before it's published anywhere. And you can hit that up at MediaMonarchy.com/listen. That is in about 13 hours from right now, James. There's episode 637, buddy.
Pop quiz, hotshot. What was Principal Skinner's real name?
Are you talking about the episode everybody hates, though?
Yeah.
The one that's
right. Isn't it Suborgian? Something like that.
It's Armin Tamzarian is the name. I can get that. Hey, my mom was telling me that a West Virginian that they know was on Jeopardy the other day. They didn't bet anything on Final Jeopardy, and they lost, even though they got the question right. It's like, oh, you should have bet something. So yeah, I'm a trivia nerd. I would love to go on Jeopardy. I did fill out one of the postcards once back in the day, and I thought about going to DC, when they drive the van around and you can go audition and stuff, but I never did it. So I'll just turn Media Monarchy into my end game show.
That's a good answer. I like that. Be your own media. Anyway, we should go on as a tag team. And if there's a question about Ahmadinejad's original name, I'll answer that one. And if there's a question about Principal Skinner's real name. Anyway, all right. Thank you. Thank you for the stories again, James. Looking forward to doing it again.
Thanks so much, buddy. Take care, man.
Take care.